Today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And when you use my code right now, HMA, they'll put $50 in your account when you put a $5 lineup down. Hard to beat that. They've got baseball, basketball, heck, they've even got the seasonal picks up here for the NFL season. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do remember to gamble responsibly. Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in on what is hopefully a wonderful summer Sunday afternoon. And today, as we're turning the page through what is actually going relatively quick as far as this final sort of dead month of the off season, we're looking at a variety of different topics that I find of interest and that I think aren't getting, maybe discussed enough a little bit here. And there's so many good places, of course, to talk about when you're looking at a team that just won the Super Bowl, and so many things to kind of pull from and discuss. And I think we've got a variety of things here in even the next couple of weeks still I want to really dive into, just because I'm excited about with this team. And I think at the forefront of that does stand one Sam Darnold, a man who came here last year with very little expectation. He was signed here as kind of almost an afterthought to Geno Smith, but there's a lot of people in Hawk fandom that thought Geno Smith would have thought he'd be the better option. That Sam was essentially exposed right at the end of the year of the Vikings, despite having the good year. And so he came here without much ballyhoo on that. And so you saw with Sam last year, him come out and give you another year of really matching what he did the prior year with Minnesota, minus the fall off at the end of the year, which wasn't just on Sam, of course. We've talked about many times. There was a variety of things that went into that end of run there for him with the Vikings. But he was able to duplicate the season and be maximally productive and fit within the confines of this offense. And out the gate, our guy found not only a lot of success, but he was indeed almost on kind of an MVP form-like run at one point or another here, where you see him in the first I kind of chopped this up into two halves of the season here, weeks 1 through 12 and 13 through, and the playoffs are included in this, by the way. As far as you can see that he is early on there was putting up a ton of yards, 29.5 yards per game as far as total points. There was a lot of touchdowns in there. The passing attempts weren't a lot, but he was making a lot of big-time ballsy throws in there. As the graph says, there were big plays, but there were big mistakes as well within this. So it kind of got inconsistent despite the productivity, and you had the turnovers especially. The turnovers really did stand out. And as we got down the home stretch, and as in regards to a lot of what we're going to talk about in the video here today, Sam was able to cut down the interceptions and cut down the turnovers in general terms. And so even though the passing attempts technically went up, the points per game went just a little bit down, though there's some built-in reasons for this, but he was able in a lot of ways to eliminate those turnovers and interceptions, of course, leading to a magical playoff run that saw Sam with no fumbles and no interceptions in every single game, when, of course, every critic of Sam was saying it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. I'm telling you, it's coming. It's only a matter of time. And it didn't come. And this is the final thing, as I referenced in my video, the breakthrough that I think that Sam made. And this is no small breakthrough, no small thing. I think that there's a really good chance that Sam can still have increased upside from what we've seen from him over the past 2 years. It may be that this is just where the ceiling lies. And Super Bowl winner, a guy that can occasionally go win you the game as you need, not just be a pure game manager. Okay, I could deal with that if this is just where he's going to finish up at. But there is a possibility of him being more. And I would say it's because of the confidence and trust factor. Two things which aren't exactly, in my opinion, at any of his other stops, been there really in the full form that they'll be here this year. At every one given time, outside of maybe that first Jets spot, which when he landed there, obviously with Adam Gase doing cocaine in his office, probably wasn't the greatest of environments there. But he was always kind of looked at as the kind of guy that he's fine for us having him in the room right now, but not part of the plan, not part of the future. And even as you brought him in, as I said last year, to replace Geno, there was still that thinking of all right, prove it to me, show us what you got. All right, maybe. Same thing that happened to him in the prior year in Minnesota. And now he has, for the first time in his career here, an opportunity to, be rounded out into his final form as to what he's going to be as a player, but then also have the organizational trust and buy-in truly that, hey, this is your team. We're not looking for the next escape hatch here to get to the next quarterback. We're not just one of your mistakes away from bailing off of you. I think that certainly last year showed that. If Mike was just a super hyper turnover Nazi, where he's like, if you as a quarterback will turn the ball over, then I will not let you play. And instead of that, we didn't get that. And Mike stuck with him. Mike trusted him. Mike hammered in his pressers and in 710 and his interviews and saying, got to eliminate this stuff down. But indeed, Sam eliminated it. You didn't get down through these two halves of the year in this way that it looks right now and see those turnovers come down, but by the fact that it was purposeful. As I showed here, your passing attempts technically during that period of time went up. And what you saw Sam do, and you saw him do it in the Super Bowl at times, but you saw it come forward where it's less of the pressing stuff, because Sam's got a lot of great pluses in what he brings to the table as a player, but he's got some minuses too. It isn't just all pluses, but it's a lot of pluses. And it's the minuses that he's recognized in this game. You got to realize what you're not good at along with what you are good at. Where is it that I fail? Where is it that I go wrong? And in Sam Darnold, you're never going to have a guy that's going to be the perfect quarterback. There are going to be some limitations there, like there mostly is with almost all quarterbacks, right? There's no perfect QB out there. With Sam, you've got both his abilities and you got his limitations. Limitations, not many, not a laundry list, very few. Gets a little bit loose with the decision making, leads to some needless turnovers, needless interceptions, suffers a little bit from the fumbleitis, right? Something also that we've seen in him, and something that's been like 24, 25 fumbles throughout the course of his career. So not just a 1 year problem, but an issue you do get with him as far as how this goes along. Elongated release, which is what is going to lead to more tip passes or balls going off the helmet, like we saw in the Tampa Bay Buccaneer game, a lot of that. And so you're going to get a little bit of that. That's a bit of the price of doing business, I'd say, at times with, tip passes that turn into interceptions in this offense, because it's a timing-based offense. It's a short passing attack offense. It's going to lead to tip passes. And then probably an unlikely guy to carry a load week in and week out in the same manner, in the same way that you would see, somebody like Matt Stafford do. But we're not paying him to do that. He doesn't have to do that. You can go win Super Bowls without him having to do that. So even though these are 4 limitations, they're really, again, part of just the few that exist with him. And some of these are really connected, aren't they? I'd say the top 3, in fact. Gets too loose with the decision-making, which the fumbleitis can be led from too, holding on that ball a little bit too long, not thinking with the forefront of getting both those hands on the ball, keeping it held onto it tight. Instead, you're still kind of looking down for that play that you can make down the field. And so you're not aware of the defender closing in on you to knock the ball free. Part of that loose decision-making, it's not just loose decision-making looking down the field and the throws he's choosing to make or choosing not to make. And then as well, the elongated passes, which are going to lead to turnovers. So if you're getting loose with your decision-making and then we're getting the tip passes and you got your fumbleitis tossed in, suddenly now you look like you're a turnover machine, which is not the case, and which is the thing that Sam Darnold has been able to fix over the course of that back half of the year. I do think that this will continue into the future, because what allows this to get fixed is the way that you win football games, which we're going to get into in a second. You've got a formula, an actual way, and having a formula, it then gives Sam the blueprint so that he's not the captain out on the ocean just trying to use a half-broken compass to find which direction to send the boat. He's got the guidance system, he's got the GPS, he's got the second in command out there charting with that stupid ruler that they use on those boats, whatever that thing's used for. He's got all that. Second mate, all that stuff with this kind of offense. But when you put him out there on his own boat, he's just got to find his own way. Yeah, you could lead you to trouble. But let's also not forget the pluses Sam is bringing. That this guy is a former top 5 first-round pick, and why he was a first-round pick. Why a guy in Lance Erline who does those, you guys have all read it up on those combine reports that they do of players, and he does his breakdowns of them, getting into the film of them. This was a guy that he compared to Andrew Luck coming out. Seeing him as being that kind of guy and his ability and what he could bring. And you can see here, there's a lot coming here to the table, keeping in mind those few limitations I showed on the other side, which do show up in a major way. I'll definitely say is that. But that's why it's so important this major breakthrough has happened for him, because the limitations are just so centered around this kind of singular thing. A little bit. Strength-wise, ideal size and build, sturdy. We saw plenty of times in the pocket where if it's a glancing blow or a player that can't wrap him up fully in the pocket, he can shake out of that and shake free and able to then extend the play. Remember that Tampa Bay game where you had the defensive tackle there that had him right dead in his sights, free rusher, unblocked, running right at Sam, right up through the A gap. He's got, seemingly nowhere to go. And Sam just kind of ducks his shoulders and goes back the other way. And he's able to really root down with that sturdiness, sends that defender flying, elongates out the play, and is able to throw it up over the top. It might have been also the Steelers game that happened in as well. A couple of moments that you really felt, and this is important because we're moving into an era right now where you have so many quarterbacks that are getting smaller. Your Bryce Young types, where I could just get a glancing arm on a Bryce Young and he's going down. To have a little bit of that extra sturdiness against some of these defenders does show up. And it's part of what also helps him from his pocket mobility, which is also here one of the listed items that I kind of presented here. Arm strength to make every throw. This is very important. You're not limited in this offense and saying, hey, we got to take this out of the playbook. We got to take that out of the playbook because he can't make that near to far hash throw to the far sideline 25 yards down the field. He just doesn't have the arm to do that. We got to take that play out. There are a lot of quarterbacks out there who do not have the arm strength to make all the throws in the book. Brock Purdy cannot make every throw in the book. There are throws that Shanahan has to essentially kind of remove from him to kind of protect him a little bit. And I would say that's both down the field and sometimes in between those tackles with some of his sight line and having to do those trust throws where he's kind of throwing it blind because he can't see over the top of the treetops. Not the case with Sam Darnold. He's got the sideline and vision to do that type of stuff, and he's got the arm to make every type of throw. As another listed reason in here too, the arm strength for any season. And this is the cool thing about Sam's arm strength to me is that he's not the guy that's going to be one of the best in the NFL at arm strength as far as having the most amount of arm strength in the NFL. He's not up at that, probably not to the quite like Mahomes place or Stafford place, but he does have a real upper level arm for the sport. And what's cool about it is it's an arm that works in any season. So he can be a wet quarterback guy where it's raining down and it's not going to affect him as much as other QBs in this way. At least he's shown that tendency in the past. And then he's also got the arm strength for off balance, off platform, taking a hit. Going to show you a couple of these videos here in a second on some of these items with what he brings to the table here. But that you can have him basically being, you're getting rocked and then you're still letting that arm go. I don't need both my cleats in the ground. I don't need my body centered up. I don't need to be able to get my full torque with the nice throw and the pretty throwing motion fully off in order to get that ball off. I can have you hanging off and I can almost just alley-oop this, just kind of hook shot that, pass it over to you in a way, and I'll get it off and I can still throw it with authority. I can still throw it with some velocity. And he's tough. That's another part of this too that you love about him is he's a durable guy, but a very tough in the pocket. And then he'll take that shot. He'll hang in there. I'll show some more tape of this here as we finish up a little bit of the discussion on this today, but that he's willing to do that, but that arm strength can come in at all times and all ways. Every throw in the book, I can make it off platform. I can make it rolling to my left, rolling to my right. I can make it falling off my back foot. I can have you hit me, but you can always feel my arm strength on that at every point in time. So again, we come back to I'm not limited by any throw that I potentially can make. As I said about the sturdiness, he's got that athleticism for the position to give you pocket mobility. This guy's not going to be confused with the Michael Vick or even our own Russell Wilson. He's obviously not going to be that. See, Pumpkin's got some thoughts on this too. He's not going to ever be quite that to that degree. But he is a guy who has shown good pocket mobility. He's got some good agility in the pocket. You can see as well that he's drilled out a lot of that stuff. Part of this is the building this up and your abilities to do this. Guy was a former linebacker. I mean, he's not one of those guys that's been playing quarterback since, he was essentially, cat's face hugging me. Since he was essentially 5 years old. He's played other positions and he's got a little bit of that athleticism you could feel from him within the pocket, which is helpful when things do, of course, break down, and he's got to improvise, which that's another thing that he brings to the table is he is a rhythm-based passer, but one of the unique parts about Sam and watching him last year and really diving into his tape, he's a rhythm-based passer who's also comfortable with improvisation. Maybe sometimes a little bit too comfortable. You know what I mean? Maybe just sometimes a little bit too much so. Okay, we're going to have to just chill out. So, that's where sometimes that decision-making and getting a little too loose stuff comes into play too, is that he ends up having a little bit too much faith in the improvisation. But to me, this is the part that's unique because last year people would take a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and try to make that the comp for Sam last year. And I really hated it because there are elements of what Sam does that's game manager. And we're going to get that in a second and what this formula is that you're trying to get from the quarterback position. but there was so much more there from him because Jimmy Garoppolo's got to work on rhythm, got to work on timing, got to limit my attempts, man. Work on timing, rhythm-based timing, work on rhythm, limit my attempts, man. You ask me to extend out of that. You ask me to extend outside the play and try to improvise and scramble around a little bit in the back. I ain't going to do none of that. I don't have any of that in my bag. I got zero of that in my bag. And there's a lot of quarterbacks, especially the rhythm-based guys, that sometimes can have a tendency to have that happening and going on with them. And you can still make the offense work. You can still be a very good offense. But to have the guy that can do a little bit of that extending and have that in his bag to be able to call upon has made this offense in its history and its past just absolutely sometimes almost impossible to stop. Because you go back to a Joe Montana and Steve Young, yeah, Steve Young was hyper mobile, hyper scrambling, get you yards with his legs. Joe was also an underrated guy with his pocket mobility and how he could use his legs as well within this offense. John Elway did really well with this offense and his ability to use that too, going in kind of conjunction as well. So keep in mind too here that, he's got this stuff in his bag that's a real unique thing that's worked really well in the past with this offense. And it's a thing that's unique to those timing-based passers. They don't tend to have that other side to their game most of the time. Some do, but most don't. I think we've seen that he's resilient, the way that he's been able to bounce back in his career, the way he's been able to bounce back a double time. Hell, you could almost say a triple time. You go double time in the respect of what happened with Minnesota at the end, where it seemed to resurrect his career and everybody was like, oh, you figured it out. You're finally here. You're ready to go. And then he gets to the end of the season and they're like, oh, he just diminished himself and reduced himself. And he's really actually what we always thought he was. And we were right all along. And yet, Then he comes to Seattle last year and he starts out great. And everybody's like, well, it's great. But then the turnovers start mounting and they start mounting and they get those 4 interceptions in that Rams game. And then you get a lot of people out there going, all right, here we go again. Been on this ride before. We know how this thing's going to end. And it did not. It went of course, the other direction, which just again shows some of the resiliency that he brings to play. Capable of playing within himself. This is going to come back around again to the discussion on how you're trying to win in a second and why this is so important to Sam breaking through on this one fatal flaw is you've got to learn how to play within yourself. Mike McDonald talked about in his press conferences last year when people would point to the turnover stuff with Sam and you got to just tell Sam to take it down, don't you? You got to tell him just shut it all off. You got to have him tell him to take no more turnovers, Sam. It's not that easy. And the coach talked about that. Saying, yeah, it's easy enough for you guys to say, but there's a price to be said for saying that. I can say it, and I can inflict that level of pressure upon him to force him to not do it, but then I'm putting training wheels on the offense. Then I'm limiting the offense, and the offense has to score. I can't just get this done with my defense and special teams. I can't treat the offense like a get-by situation. They've got to do their part as well. To make the formula work, the offense has got to kick in its end as well. And that means that Sam's got to be in there with that. And that means that we got to find him able to play within himself and finding that perfect balance, which is this breakthrough that Sam has found. It's finding that perfect balance of play to where I can still be efficient, I can still be effective, and I can limit down the mistakes to a bare minimum. You're not going to take everything out across the board 100% in this way, especially with that elongated throwing motion. And some of the tip pass throws you'll get that will be intercepted over the course of the season. I could have a problem with those ones. It's the ones you can control. It's those ones that were getting him in trouble early on in the year that he recognized not to get him in trouble later on in the season. Situations like late in the pocket. You probably need to get rid of it here. You probably need to use your legs here. Instead, no, let me give it another beat. Let me try to run around a little bit longer. I extend this a little bit too far, right? You've gone through your 3-4 reads. Now you're trying to come back to 1. Maybe I need to just throw this one away, live to see another day. And that was the Sam and the version of him we got last year, which was such a huge thing for him to learn. Because again, it sounds easy on paper. It's easy enough as us as fans to say, hey, just stop intercepting the ball, man. Stop doing that thing. But it's harder to do that when you're balancing up against the need to also be productive and to execute an offense, which requires a quarterback playing and play out, not to go hide in the corner, but to be out front and having to serve as that point guard positional role. I love the fact that he's got a show me, not tell me type of leadership style. And this is, of course, one where there's a lot of QBs out there that'll tell you about what kind of leaders they are. And you'll hear a lot about I'm this and I'm that, I'm doing all this. And then there's those guys that you can just tell are leaders. Take a look at this picture in the locker room of Sam Darnold from 2 years ago with Minnesota Vikings. This is after a regular season win. This isn't after they had won the division or this had been locked down. This was after a comeback victory where he played his butt off, and he's got the Minnesota players in year one of him there with the organization. Not, oh, you've been here for 3 years. You've been fighting your butt off. You've been fighting hard and you haven't been breaking through, and we've seen your struggle and we've seen your pain and we've seen what you've gone through. And now you've seen the promised land. No, here's a guy that arrived new on the scene to you that's been there for about 5 minutes, and you are hoisting him up on your shoulders. I can think of no other representation in recent memory seeing of a quarterback that has his team's back, or his team has his back, and that they absolutely positively are riding with him. That it is one of those things like, that's my quarterback. But it is why when you hear a guy like Ernest Jones last year say, after that 4 interception performance, if anybody's got anything to say about this quarterback, F you. Because he meant it. Because these guys with this guy in the locker room know what disingenuous looks like, know what fake looks like. The real McCoy stands out. And it's an elemental part you need your team as the quarterback to be that leader. And not everybody is built to lead. Not everybody understands all of what you need to do to lead. And sometimes not understanding as far as an intelligence thing, sometimes just an understanding of like sense, instinct, how to go about your business, right? Or the way you go about your business is one that resonates with other grown-ass men that allows you to lead. And Sam has shown that he's provided that. I think that's a big helping hand to this team and will be as we go forward, especially with all of the continuity that we're going to keep here. Top end deep ball. It's not Russell Wilson's moon ball. That was one of the best all time ever, but it's a really good one. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of it as we wind this down, but his top end deep ball stands out last year as it comes back to that initial thing that I said about him, where it's arm strength to make every throw. And that's including, I got to throw it 55 yards down the field. I got to heave this thing. I'm going to send it down. And I can take advantage of you anywhere on the field as far as you defensively opening up a door and saying, hey, we'll expose ourselves to be vulnerable here, but we don't think you got the arm strength to attack us there. Guess what, buddy? I do. Bang. He's got that to be able to do it. The last 3 points, worker, durability, clutch. You had a couple of different comebacks last year. Arizona, Indy game, he had to come back twice in the fourth quarter. Twice in the fourth quarter in that game. So game had one, got the field goal, you're up in the game. Defense comes down, lets you down. Now he has to come back and win the game again a second time in that game. You also had the close calls in the game with the Bucs where he was driving you down. The ball got tipped off a helmet, picked off. You had the Niners game where he had driven you up the field in game one. And then Bosa puts a great bull rush on Abraham Lucas. Sam Darnold's looking away with his read from where the bull rush is coming. Can never even see Bosa coming in. The ball gets knocked free on a fumble. And then the Rams' first game with the 4 interceptions, of course, Sam from the 1 yard line in that game, very little time, after he had started to kind of bring things together at that point, was able to then drive you up the field to at least give Jason Myers a field goal attempt at that point, again from the 1 yard line after the miracle punt from the Rams punter in that game. So you had a couple other close call opportunities as well throughout the year, but also remembering that you had like 7 blowout wins last year, just in the regular season alone, a couple more in the playoffs. So he had a lot of comfortable victories that just didn't require him to have to be clutch, but he does have that in him as well. Again, I wouldn't overstate and say he's the best in the sport in that way, but he has all of this stuff. It's what builds him into being that quarterback. It isn't some one defining skill that just this sets him above everything else and makes it very clear to everybody about the QB he is. He's just a top 10 quarterback and a guy that probably sits in somewhere in that neighborhood of, the top, 8-ish territory, and can go up even a little bit higher when he's a little bit hot. But he's found as well, beyond being this good of a quarterback, having this skill set he brings to bear with very few limitations. He's learned that lesson. And in learning that lesson, as I showed on the limitations angle of it, that helps to lessen down the limitations he has. The few limitations you have, you learn this thing, you learn how to control your game a little bit more, you dial that stuff down, and now you're going to make us really hard to beat. You're going to be hard to beat as a quarterback, and we're going to be hard to beat as a team. When it comes to the Seahawks, there's a formula at play that I've been trying to bang the drum for with you guys for a while now in regards to, I think there's a very specific way that the Seattle Seahawks are trying to win football games. I think it's a formula. I think it's interconnected. You could think of it as like a circle of connected parts that all kind of connect the whole together. That they all work together maybe within a formula, if you want to put it together that way. And I think what's important to understand about this is that every team is going to have a way that they're going to try to go win football games. And what makes the NFL really cool is that every team's got their different ways that they're going to go and try to win by their fashion. There's some overlap, but everyone's got their own unique way of doing it. And that's part of the fun of NFL Sundays is matchups and styles. And we're trying to win this way and we're trying to win that way. But the way Seattle tries to win is go through a couple of very specific things here. Let's go through these and interconnect them a bit. You limit your kick returns. You maximize kick return yardage, right? Investment in what you put into this roster, the spending of money on Rashid Shaheed, the spending of money on Jason Myers, the spending of money on Michael Dixon, putting a 7th rounder in future drafts for a gunner, as we did a couple of weeks ago. You want to make sure you can limit kickoff returns, punt returns, and you want to make sure you can maximize the return yardage and kick and punt returns as well. One of the center places that this team starts with, because kickoff and punts is kickoffs, of course, is where the games start. You got a roster built 1 through 70. And I'm going to show a couple comparatives within our own division, by the way, with the Rams and the Niners on this to show you guys where some of the differences lie on this, where you might say, well, everybody tries to do this. No, not everybody does so from an actual tactical position. You know, they might fall into having a strong 70-man roster, but it isn't because that's how they've necessarily driven their purpose to get there. Seattle, you can see where the value comes in. They've even at times expanded into where John's talked about thinking about it in terms of 120-man guys, where it's not even guys on the roster, just guys we're in contact with, just guys that we have ready-made. What do we call the ready roster or something like that, where it's guys you can call upon at any point in time, but that they want to build a depth of strength within the roster, that there will be other rosters that are built more to starters or built to more stars. And that we're, of course, going to try to find those things as well and have those strong as well, but that there's always going to as well be an eye at all times to the depth, to the strength, because that will factor into the modern NFL and will help you win football games. Extreme running game commitment. The Seattle Seahawks were 29th last year in passing attempts. That's pretty extreme running game commitment when you've got to realize as well through the first half of the schedule, you were not running the ball efficiently. You were having moments of effectiveness. You were not efficient at it. It was more of like your passing attack was making it happen. Now, there were some extra reasons for this. Team stacking the boxes, blitzing the ever-loving hell out of us. But that stood out as far as like you stayed committed to running the ball in a way that I would offer. So maybe even a team in our own division has a little bit of struggles with doing so in the same kind of fashion. So extreme commitment to running the ball. This is important because it's going to lend well to certain points that are also on this list, like control the clock. Consistent drives. You got to be able to run the ball if you're going to try to do those type of things, and you got to have the commitment to running the ball if you're going to try to do those type of things. If you're pass happy, you're going to have a lot more 3 and outs. If you're just one-sided in your approach offensively in the way that's going to go. But controlling the clock, consistent drives. Kitty, we got to, I know. Consistent drives, control the clock, two big points that go hand in hand with each other. This is because this does protect your defense. This allows you to wear down the defenses. And because you have the commitment to the running game, you're wearing down the defenses. Hopefully you guys can all see how all of these things kind of connect on this. The way the Seahawks trying to win, and I'm going to give you a couple of other examples. And this is pertinent to the Sam Darnold discussion, by the way, because Sam builds into this with the bottom, for instance, right point of win the turnover war. You've got to absolutely win the turnover war within all this. Turnovers will be the death knell for your team if you're letting the opposition suddenly be on a short field, or worse yet, like you did in the Texans game last year, have your quarterback get strip sacked, fumbled in his own end zone, and then give the defense a touchdown. This doesn't work if that's going to happen. And this is why Seattle was going to be limited last year to how far they could hope to go if Sam was going to continue on his kind of turnover streak through the first half of the year, because it just was not going to allow the formula to work. It's one of the most important points within this is that you got to win the turnover war. You got to play clean. And it starts that quarterback position, especially the combination of the loose decision-making with the fumbleitis. Those two things just allow that thing to get magnified a little bit and be more center stage than it would even be more so. And it's already an important item as it stands to this team. As far as defenses go, there's 2 real big points here, living in nickel and a premium on defensive 3 and outs. So think about this in certain cases. You're kicking the ball off. You're trying to stack them on a long field. Let's get the tackle by the 19-yard line. Our defense is ideally trying to get to 3 and outs. 3 and outs mean that punter's still punting from his side of the field. Maybe he's even standing in the shadow of his own end zone. Oh, boom. He points it out, pumps it out. We get it about the 42-yard line is where our guy able to return it back and Shaheed because we got a good punt returner. Now you get just merely 2 first downs, couple play, 14-yard gain, couple a little bit more, get down to the 36-yard line, only 2 first downs, consistency of drives. Now I go out and get a field goal kick. Now every time I'm out there as an offense, I'm consistently getting points because the defense gets off, punt return game gets us a little closer, offense gets a couple of those consistent drives, points. Maybe not all touchdowns every time. And you want to shoot for touchdowns, you don't live in field goal city, but field goals aren't bad. Yeah, the NFL last year tried to sell a lot of you guys on all those coaches going for it every turn and trying to make you think that field goals were naughty. That they were naughty. Field goals aren't naughty. Field goals are meat and potatoes. We had an Indianapolis Colts game where we didn't have one touchdown. We just kept kicking field goal, won the game. Jason Myers set a field goal record in the Super Bowl, won the game. Because yes, you need touchdowns, but if my offense almost every single time is coming in there, getting those points every single time, and they're coming away with those points every single time, and it's just doom, you're just stacking points up. And if I'm controlling the clock, if I'm elongating these drives, if I'm getting that offense on the field, if I'm wearing down that defense, if I'm limiting turnovers, see how all of this kind of just interconnects? It all works together. It all works to like breathe like an entity almost to getting you to winning. And it makes you hard to beat because there's not your castle walls are really high. It's going to take a mighty cannonball to break on through that. Fluid game plans on both sides of the ball. You don't have to just win one way. We got to come out every game. We got to hammer with a running game, and we're going to break through eventually, and that's how we win. And if we can't do that, we'll do a fourth quarter heroic comeback. That's how we'll win. No. We're beyond those kind of simplistic days. Now you can go opponent by opponent and go, how do we beat this opponent? So early on in the year, you got opponents that see your condensed splits. You're bringing the receivers in tighter, 12 personnel as well with the 2 tight ends. Defenses see that. Their eyes get big, and they're like, hey, let's stack that box and let's blitz that front. And let's do that over and over again. So they go, hell, we can't run into a head. We tried. We can't run our head into a wall here with a run game because there's all these bodies up here with this condensed splits. So let's attack over the top. It's bomb city, baby. And that's just what you did. You went bomb city with it. You decided to attack over top, and you were very successful at it because if you're going to blitz like that, you ain't going to have the bodies on the back end to then cover it up. You're now requiring your cornerbacks to hold out there on an island. And we got the receivers to be able to beat you at that point, as we showed last year. So a game plan that can be fluid both offensively, in that if we got to have a game where I got to have Sam go out there and throw 40, 45 times a game, that's not how we're trying to live. But if we got to do it, he can do it, and he can be successful at it, and he can carry that load like he did in the conference championship. Right? That's in his bag. You can have a week where you're going to load up the box, we'll take you down the other way with it. We've got an ability to go dip both ways. And likewise, we have a defense that's the ultimate defense at completely morphing around whatever offense it's playing up against and just going at absolutely where they're going to be weak. It's almost the purpose of this defense in so many ways. So you have fluid game plans. You can go against any opponent and be able to call upon any strategy you want in order to try to counter whatever they're doing. Where there's a lot more, I would say, teams that are a little bit more stringent and rigid in the way that they can go about, getting the job done on one side of the ball or the other. We need to be a bend but don't break defense. We need to limit the big plays and hope they make a mistake type of defense, right? Or an offense that's going to live in just being a pass happy offense that just sort of runs to get by. That's just the way you're going to live. Kind of like Kansas City at times had been over years. And again, this isn't just say there's other ways to be successful or to find the ultimate success in other ways, but this way, this is time tested and timeless. And it's just one that will work in any era of football. So you can see that there's real specific items here that really, to me, connect together why Seattle wins this way. And when Sam, with rhythm-based timing passer, gets you those consistent drives to help you control the clock. The play action game off of run game, you could say Sam is one of your better in the sport at running play action, turning his back to the defense, flipping his hips back around, and ripping that ball off and being able to put in the right spot and having really good decision-making. Because remember, it's not easy to have good decision-making when on play action, you're turning your back to the defense and having to whip it back around and make an instantaneous decision. So it really helps in then when you've got the extreme running game commitment and having a good play action guy, like you do in the manner with him as you do. So Sam's skills fit into the way that we try to win, and him limiting those turnovers especially sort of removes that one vulnerability that was really existing in the team last year that would have given probably an inroads to a team like the Rams in the playoffs to take you down. Or the Patriots as well, if you had a couple of early turnovers in that game and actually had given them some momentum and ability to start to feel good about themselves. Just as a comparison, I wanted to show on this to kind of show, and I tried to be fair with this on this. I'm sure Ram fans and 49er fans are going to be annoyed with me and saying, that's not what we're going to do. We don't do it this way. But this is just to kind of show you some differences of what I just showed you and how cognitive our formula is and what we're trying to do. And look to now how even on successful teams here, there are many ways to do this. This isn't me knocking. It's just that it feels a little bit less connected in a process of how you're doing things. Again, there's going to be some overlap on this as well. 49ers, star-driven roster, and the starters need to carry the day. That's part of their formula. That's part of how they got to win football games. This ain't going to be, you ain't riding or dying on the back of your second and third string guys in any manner or form. They don't have a Ty Akata, a Tyrese Knight. They don't have the fourth edge we got to call upon. They're not going to have the fourth defensive tackle to call upon. They're not going to have the fourth cornerback to call upon, right? I can go down the list on this. Number 2, heavy 21 personnel, I formation, fullback usage, Kyle Juszczyk. This is to drive coverage mismatches for the run game. And then, it drives coverage mismatches when you can get the teams in base defense on 21 personnel. And then if defenses try to counter you with nickel, now you have a real nice setup for you to be able to attack them in the run game and be able to, essentially go after them in that manner at that point. Run McCaffrey until the wheels fall off. Nothing about depth here. It's all about just run with this one running back. He had like 450 touches last year, something in that neighborhood. That's just ridiculous. It's been that way with him there for a while since he's walked in the door. Kyle's got a weird way with him on this. This is just what he does. Did it with Deebo Samuel as well. Don't know why he does it, but it is the truth of it is that he just does do it. They are a team where, as I said, there is some overlap here. You run the same style of offense, so there is going to be some overlap. So consistent drives, control the clock. Definitely there's a commitment to running that's somewhat similar to Seattle. I don't know if it's to the same nature. I think that Shanahan does get a little bit pass happy at times. Then you've got play it safe and limit the big plays on defense. This is something that's going to maybe be changing this year, but this has been the modus operandi of Shanahan throughout his time there, which is that we're not going to allow big plays. We're going to make them earn their way up the field, bend but don't break. You've had your Robert Saleh, Carol Acolyte come from, be living in there for out his time, doesn't want to blitz a lot. They're going to kind of play standard model on that. Now, they are trying to change this year wholly and go to more of that blitz heavy kind of setup. And like, we're going to really do the, Raheem Morris, let's get after you kind of the situation. We'll see how that works. But up until this point, that's the way that they've rolled it. Defensive stars drive the defense, especially. I know I said it's a star-driven roster in general, and that's the truth, but the defense is really driven by the stars. They absolutely have to have a Nick Bosa, a Warner, a DeMondre Lenore playing at their best, because if they don't have the secondary parts, supplemental parts to fall upon to be able to get that done then. Number 8, they've got an on-time offense. That's some of that rhythm-based stuff that exists here with having that overlap, but a lot is also built in with the improvisation of Purdy. Kind of like, you don't have this read here, you don't have that read there, then we're going to have you lean into your improvisation and try to go make it up and figure something out. And while there's a sense of chaos to this style, there's also a sense of benefit to this style as well. I pointed out in Sam Darnold's situation in that as a defense, you start to play a style of quarterback that's fully on that timing-based and rhythm-based approach, and they're just playing and play out. You're kind of getting a rhythm, right, of how they're going to, he's on his back foot, letting it go, back foot, letting it go, back foot, letting it go. So that if you do have a quarterback who then can be capable of back foot, you thought I let it go. No, I pirouetted around the pocket, took 4 steps to my right to extend the play, and my guy broke open 50 yards down the field. And so it's not a bad thing necessarily, the improvisation. I would just say that there's a little bit more of leaning into it in the 49er offense than there is in like the Hawk offense in that way. And it's become a bit of a centerpiece to the Niner team offensively and how they've rolled in recent years there with Purdy. Purdy was a lot more on time when he first walked in the door. He's become more improvisational off-script guy the longer he's been in there as a starter and even after he got paid. Number 9, special teams is moderately important. Moderately. So they put a little bit of effort into it. I don't think they go overkill. I don't think they're trying to make 7th round trades for gunners. But they do a little bit more than this other team that I'm going to talk about, which is going to be the Rams, of course. Here's the Rams style. And again, some overlap like the 49ers star-driven roster need the starters to also carry the day. So both star-driven roster and our starters are got to carry the day. Backups aren't really going to be as much a factor into this. First, like I said, some of the depth you have here in Seattle, where I mentioned the defensive guys you got on that side of the ball. You've got it on offense as well. A multitude of tight ends, all of your offensive line backups returning. Running backs are pretty deep. Your tight ends, you can go down the line on this a little bit, but they're just a little bit more. We talked a bunch about this offseason. They're just a lot more to the front starter roles of things. Heavy 13 personnel usage. So the Niners are going to be 21 personnel, I formation looks. The Rams heavily leaned into last year, the 13 personnel, and they just drafted Max Clare in the second round, which means they're only going to be doubling back down into this style. And like what the Niners do with the 21 personnel is what they're trying to do with the 13 personnel. Are you going to stay in nickel or are you going to go to base defense? If you go to base defense, we have mismatches with our tight ends to be able to attack your linebackers in coverage. If you're going to go with nickel, now we're going to be able to have the big bodies up front to be able to take you on in the run game and dominate you up front with just as much a beef factor as much as anything else. The front four drives the defense, the investment into the secondary. Yes, McDuffie cost a lot. Yes, that first round pick was a lot to give up. Not a lot of extra stuff really thrown into that secondary other than the free agent contract to give up to Watkins. It's not been one that they've necessarily hammered a lot of investment in that secondary in the past. Likewise, this is the team that traded Ernest Jones rather than pay him a couple of years ago. They finally now have paid Landman a moderate deal there as a middle linebacker, a run defending middle linebacker. But they don't exactly go over the moon with their off-ball linebackers either. They need the front four to get it done. It's a team that's essentially wants to get up on you in football games and then have the front four be able to go hunt and eat and make it a long day at the office for you to get it done. Then they just drop all their guys back into coverage. A little bit like the Niners in the way that they're going to play it somewhat safe in this respect, as far as you're going to more often than not have the 7 guys in coverage. And they're going to let the front 4 guys just go get the work done and try to see if you can get it passed into those tight windows. Another big part of it is the number 2 factor on this was the lean on Stafford's arm until his back gives out. This is something that I think stands out because, it lends in with the 0.4 here being balanced offensive attack in theory. The Rams in theory want to be balanced. In theory, they want to have Stafford at like 25 to 30 passing attacks, 25 to 30 passing attempts a game. But anybody that to me watches the Rams, and I think even Ram fans would acknowledge this, always got that penchant to fall back into where I want to use Stafford. I want to use my cool toy. It's a little bit like Shanahan with his running backs. I just want to keep using it and using it and using it. So it is one where they've put the investment in the offensive line. They've got the 2 running backs. It's a system that can, with the 13 personnel, run well when there's a commitment to doing so. Just the commitment's not always there. There's quite a discrepancy for a team that was in games and up in games for a majority of the time from their pass to run ratio last year. If you look at it, it's pretty eye-opening as far as that discrepancy goes. It's not like you were down in every single game, but it's just sort of a strange part of what they do in their approach. They do emphasize stopping the run as well defensively. I think that stands out. They understand, and that late Nate Landman contract showed and some of that course correction there. This has been a recent development for them of more of putting the emphasis on stopping the run. We're not just going to get up in every single game, and then that'll take the running game away. Sometimes we got to earn the right to have taken the run game away, not just have our offense essentially do it for us. And last part is really just kind of the real breakdown of their formula, which is the offense dominates, the defense provides, I said proves, but provides the kill shot, and you survive on special teams. So the special teams factor, and I put down to the nth degree, hopefully you could see there in breaking down the special teams, how Seattle's not just wants a good special teams of go get a good punter, go get a good kicker. No, it's go get maybe the best kicker, best punter in the league. Maybe go get the best kick and punt returner in the league. Maybe have the best defensive unit in the league at stopping kickoff and punt returns in the sport in addition to that, as well as how you block it up. I mean, it's trying to create that from a real purposeful position, not that you land into it or you happen into it, but you're trying to tangibly build it. And that goes back to that 1 through 70 mold. So Sam's fit into this is one where your formula is exact. And Sam has to find his exact positioning within this. So when I call this his massive breakthrough, it's not just the massive breakthrough that gives him a potential of even elevating himself further as a quarterback and his ranking in that pecking order from within this league, but then for him to allow you also, more importantly probably, to now win games easier to not have things be tougher, to be able to have the formula be able to apply week in and week out. You don't have to overthink it. You know what you're trying to do. You don't have to invent the wheel every week in the manner by which you win. You just stay to who you are from an identity standpoint, and you have that identity hardlined, and that can get it done. And it isn't one guy having to be a superhero at that point. It isn't Stafford having to throw his cape on it every week out there. It's everybody kind of doing their part and chipping in, and that includes Sam on this. Yeah, we'll ask you to make some big-time throws, but not constantly over the course of the game. And you know what? You're going to make those big-time throws, but we're not going to put a high-volume passing attack on you. We know that that's probably going to lead to a little bit more of a chance for those interceptions and stuff, so we're going to put you in positions for success here. Even though you've got skill set that can handle more of that load, we'll put you in the position for the success. And it's what the team's done, I think, with this formula and what they've done here with Sam. I want to show just a couple of quick, just fun little things here with Sam from last year, just to kind of, again, lay down just some of the things I saw that I don't know if he always gets a lot of the credit for it. As I was saying on this, the play action stuff, going back and watching the tape last year, just really stood out over and over again of guy can flip his hips, come back off, go to the first read, go to the second read, come back to the third read here, and get it to Jackson Smith and Jigba on what looks like a crossing route here. So watch him here again, play action. So your back's turned. Back's turned. I'm going to come off that. See his head snap around to the far right. So I'm looking to the far right. I got nothing there. Now his head snaps down the field, looking to his read number 2. Look at the pass rusher here where your fullback kind of doesn't quite get that chip block. So you got the defender bearing down. You got a backside defender bearing down from the other side. So you're about to get sandwiched. Sam steps up with some of that pocket mobility here. Climb up in the pocket a little bit. Buy yourself a little bit of time. Both hands on the ball. 4 defenders about to crunch him. And is able to get it off right there. So quarterbacks have to learn this coming out, just the footwork coming out of under center. Throw on top of that, having to come up under center, do multiple reads. You show me a young cornerback coming up under center, I'm going to all but guarantee you that they're about 1 or 2 reads at the most. They're not going through 3 reads coming off of that. And this is part of the benefits you get in having a guy who has been in this league now for this amount of time and is just this comfortable with making these kind of throws and knowing what he needs to do. He can do it. As I said earlier on this, the arm strength comes in all ways. So again, play action, back flipped, roll back to my left. I mean, he's floating to his left, throwing this like 45, 50 yards down the field. It's 55-yard throw here. About 55-yard throw here, rolling to his left. Like, this is so hard to do, folks. It's much easier when you're rolling to your right. The momentum takes you in a direction than when you're rolling to your right. To be able to actually get that throw off, to do this rolling to your left is really hard. And puts it right in the right spot there for our guy, Jackson. Arm strength, and that arm strength comes in, as I said earlier, in a way where he doesn't have to have all the cleats in the ground. He doesn't have to be standing perfectly tall. He doesn't have to be perfectly in rhythm there to make those throws. Again, play action here. First read ain't there. Come back to the second read on the wheel route to Jackson. So you love this because you're going to Jackson on the 2, right? Because the wheel is one where it's going to go, whoop. It's going to kind of wind and go. So it starts as an out and then it goes up. So that takes a second for Jackson to run that and set the disguise. So you're to the first read to the left, then you come back to the right. Put it right there on time. Quarterbacks, I can't undersell this, do not like turning their back to the basket, turning their back to the line of scrimmage. This is a little bit more of the shotgun here. Jackson Smith and Jigba, condensed split. Play action out of shotgun, arm in his face there. Just a beautiful ball. Notice as well with the ball just how tight this is spiral-wise and how you can just feel the arm strength coming off there. Where it's coming off with some authority. Not even really fully stepping in there. Just letting it rip. Just got a naturally strong arm. Beautiful throw last year. And how about Jackson giving it to Jalen Ramsey on that play, huh? Giving Jalen Ramsey the business. Another thing that I think that just, again, doesn't get enough, the toughness, willingness to take hits in the pocket, still deliver the ball on time. Watch him here as Bradford gets walked back into his kitchen. Just getting smacked right in the face as he makes the throw, but still, again, laser beam throw. Has to put this between the safety and the cornerback. You got maybe the best corner in the sport, Stingley, in trailing coverage here. Ballsy ass throw. Especially with the man in your... He's going to come back to coach and be like, Coach, I couldn't make the throw because I had Stingley there in trail. We had the safety closing, and I had a defensive tackle slapping me in the face. You want me to let that rip? You want me to try to get that off? Really? You sure? I don't know, Coach. I don't know. You had a couple of these last year. This one here on the crosser to Torrey. Bam. Just don't look at Torrey here. Just watch the quarterback here. Just watch 14. Boom. Head snapping back from Patrick Queen, just smacking him right in the chops. Bang. Ball right on the spot. Bang. Right there. Tough as they come for the position, I'm telling you with that. There's no shrinking away. There's no, he sees ghosts. He sees ghosts. Really? The thing that I kept seeing all last year was this kind of tape with him just getting sometimes destroyed so he could hang in there for just enough time there. Remember, that's a crossing route. So the crossing route's got to take a long time to come across the field. It's coming across the field. So I can't throw that early. I can't hit my back foot and just go boom. I got to have the guy clear to the other side of the hash before I want to let that thing go. And so I have to hold it a little bit longer there. It's a purposeful part of the play. You know, it isn't on accident. Same thing as this one. This is that one where you've got Jackson out of the backfield here, going out of a running back position. It's really dirty in the pocket all around Sam. A lot of trash. You got Braden Fisk at his feet falling down. You got another defender bearing in on him. Gets hit as he throws again. That arm strength where I don't have to be stepping into the throw. I can literally being hit and still get the ball off to the right spot. It's not a high leverage throw in that Jackson's wide open and this is Kubiak's special here and what he's dialed up. But it is in the respect of Jared Verse absolutely just gives him a good 1-4 here. And this was one of my favorite of the season here on just another one of the throws where he just got hit. It's really one of my favorite here. All right, not this one. Sorry, I got the wrong one. It's another good one here. This one from the conference championship game there with a Bobo. Got to wait. Bobo, as you can see here, running the route with Bobo to the top side of your screen. You're running an out to an in. So he's got to set it up, out, and come back in. Take some time to do that, which means Sam's got to hold in the pocket. Hold in the pocket. Let it set up and go. Keep in mind here, you're going max protect from Seattle's standpoint on this. So everybody's in protecting. But look at down the road here, you only got 2 wide receivers. So Sam can't go through 14 different options here. And he checks first with Jackson, but you can see the safety's closing over the top to Jackson. So Sam, processing, quick decision-making here. Goes, okay, I got max protect. They're going to be squatting down short in coverage because they're going to play on the run game here. Safety's going to drive to Jackson. That means I got Bobo one-on-one over the top on an in-breaking route. So now I just got to wait for Bobo to get through the route. But then I got to look where he's got a guy hanging on him on the throw. Like I'm literally just getting the throw off and I'm hit as soon as I throw. That's about a 30-yard pass on a line there to Bobo, by the way. And still puts the position in a place where only Bobo can get it. A lot of quarterbacks shrink away from getting hit. Not everybody's built tough for this. It's so fun. It hurts. These aren't small things when you get hit like that. It's a major thing when you get hit like that. So just want to show a couple of these things that he's kind of bringing here. And really everything that you want to bring to the table here, I can show you on a play like this. You get the fake pitch first here action to set it up. You get the rolling to the side. You get a hit as he throws, and then you get the deep ball all in one on this one. It's kind of a finishing process to this. So fake pitch, comfortable with the play action game, rolling to his left, able to still put arm strength onto it, rolling to his left, bomb down the field as I'm getting hit. When you call him a game manager, just remember this throw. Remember these type of throws that he's capable of making, because game managers can't make this type of throw. Tua Tagovailoa ain't making this throw. Jimmy Garoppolo ain't making this throw. Brad Johnson ain't making this throw. Trent Dilfer ain't making this throw. So let's stop with the lazy comparisons. And ain't Hawk fans, they've gotten warmed up on him and they've gotten all in on this situation, but you still hear it out there from people wanting to talk about him in this way and still not understanding what Sam's done. And it's a guy that we should be rooting for because he's done this the right way. He has done nothing but work his butt off since coming into this league and just chipping away. Like he's in a mine that's like there's gold in it, but he's got to go through so much granite and clay. And it's like you got to go through 20, 30, 40, 50 feet of this before you're going to finally get. Once you get the gold, though, there'll be a vein of that stuff like you couldn't imagine. And he's hit that gold. And we're going to get the best version of Sam moving forward. He's got an offense that's almost returning in full. And he's, more importantly, learned that final thing that was the last preventative factor from him being a top flight quarterback in this sport. And because the team is so good in so many other ways, and because you have this unbeatable type formula that you can put into place, him having this realization now, this epiphany, allows this team really to have that great chance to go back and not only repeat, but to be great for a long period of time, especially if he can kind of fall in line with what we've seen from some of these recent contracts given out to other Seattle Seahawks, being that, hey, maybe I can take the $50 million next year and we'll call it a day. You know, I make my money. I don't push for the top of the market. I make good money on it. We keep this thing rolling. I keep finding this third gear to my career, and I'm at my best through that time because of it. I'm able to put a couple championships together because of it. But Sam Darnold has been a great quarterback for us, and not just because of what he's done to produce, but because of also how he's learned. And this is all microcosm of what he's done throughout his career. His career's been about learning. His career's been about developing. And last year was just a more of that as far as just in more condensed form. And what you saw from him and going through the tribulations that he did. But that resiliency comes into play, and he's just built that way. Very, very cool quarterback. Really glad he's on our team. He does it the right way. No real ego on this guy. He just wants to be a great quarterback, go about his business. And you really got to appreciate that about him, and just makes him fit that much more into the Pacific Northwest, doesn't it? Just does kind of fit to the mold in that way because of it. All right, let's get over to you guys here in the chat real quickly here. If I may, I want to just drop a quick thank you here to Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports app. They got so many options on this app. You've got basketball just finished up, but baseball is still fully in bloom here. We got the Mariners riding high up in first place. You can take advantage of that. Some of the bats kind of heating up here, which is cool to see. We've got football coming right around the corner here shortly as well, as there are the seasonal picks that are in play. I've been posting these ones up here. I got Jackson over 1324 on the receiving yards, and Jacoby Myers over 749 on the receiving yards for Jacksonville. I think he'll be their #1 target over there. Also think there's some good picks out there like Jadarian Price at 725 yards rushing for the year. I think that's a good pickup as the early returns seem to be very positive on him in OTAs and what we've seen from him so far, and he's going to get a lot of work here early on this year. So please do utilize Prize Picks, and when you utilize my code, HMA, and you do a $5 lineup, they will put $50 in your account. So $5, $4.50, all these sports. Pair your tickets together. Get into weekly, daily fantasy if you want on all sides of that, but do utilize that code today. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details. And yes, I know in the state of Washington, there are still some limitations of being able to use the app in full, but if you are on a casino's network in the state of Washington, then you're able to use the site in full that way. Big shout out to Prize Picks, though. Thank you for sponsoring the show throughout the course of this year. And thank you to you folks for utilizing that code, as we will keep some of those picks coming in for you guys as I start to set out some of my picks here for the season. All right, let's pop over to you guys in the chat. Thanks for hanging on with me. If you can for me, hit that like button, sub on up. I would really appreciate it, as it does help out this channel tremendously. R. DeLevy, thank you for the $5 donation. R. DeLevy, it's good to see you, my man. Just got my Sam Darnold Super Bowl jersey yesterday, so hopefully he will be with us for a while. I do believe he will be. This year is one year where, I'm expecting you're going to get similar to what you got last year, and I think even a little bit more clean play, as much because I think that there's both that breakthrough that you've been kind of able to have here from his understanding of like, okay, look what happened last year, when you kind of, in essence, kind of put some of the safety stuff around you a little bit on this, where you didn't just go hog wild and free and you just put a little bit on this, like no turnovers, and you guys won the Super Bowl and won it easily. To me, there's just no greater lesson you could be learning there as a player in trying to kind of have this breakthrough happen than like, oh, I did this thing and that happened. This thing that was so problematic and such a big point of discussion throughout the year, I was able to nip it in the bud. We get a Super Bowl then from it. I mean, that should be to me a hardened lesson that you do learn. And I think you will learn it. And I think as much as anything, him in the future is not going to be about, does he have the ability to do it? Is he good enough to do this? The question is going to be about whether DeLevy, he's willing to take that contract that I think is going to be both make sense for team and player. I don't think John's going to look at getting himself back in the predicament of paying some quarterback that's going to, try to be just breaking the hell out of the bank. You hear Baker Mayfield, for instance, lobbing around wanting $60 million from Tampa Bay. That's kind of like what I'm talking about. Like you get a quarterback starts asking for that. It's like, okay, hold on now. Now I got to reset my outlook in where I've got you, because you're not just on a blue collar contract. Now you're wanting to be paid like the best in the sport. And so that's the real probably key on Sam long-term is where is he at as far as his contractual demands after this year. But I expect that he's going to be here with the team for a long period of time. Thank you though, DeLevy. Appreciate you for that. Solid buy. Very solid buy. GBHD, thank you for the $10 donation, GB. Maybe it's the 16-hour shift messing with me, but I ain't worried about none of these teams. They heard what my coach said. Well, first Mike said this to them, GB.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Like that was the part that the mic didn't actually get with him. I mean, the mic picked up this moment.
We did not care.
But they didn't get the first part, GB. It was like Strahan's mic got cut off for a second, but that was the first part where he was telling him that they aren't that guy. And then he said, and we do not care. So little known fact on that part of it. But I know it's kind of odd is that if you walked in and you told me like, if you told me at the start of last year that the Rams after the season would be trading for Myles Garrett and McDuffie and not really lose anything substantial outside of first, I would have been like a little doom and gloomy. But I do, it's really not artificial. I just do have a real sense of peace, and maybe it's just winning the Super Bowl does this. But the confidence that I got in this team and the way that they've built it, and hopefully in some of the way that I've laid the case out today, where the way you've done and what you've done has been on purpose and it's been smartly constructed. And because of that, that is what will lend itself to me to sustainability, is that it's the stuff where you're sort of shooting for the moon. You're the gambler. I'm the gambler. Like, all right, you gambled and it hit black this year, happened to hit black for you. But if you're the team that's actually putting together these such smart decisions individually, and then you have cogently a game plan for winning football games and developing the team and a plan of attack, it does lead you into a little bit more of that place of just ultimate confidence, where you just don't feel like you're scrambling. You feel like you're minding your P's and Q's, and you're taking care of everything you can within your control. There's an element of this game that's always going to be where some luck's going to be involved. The injury, the injury thing bites you one given year in a bad way or to certain positions, and it can happen. But they control what they control, that they can control. That's and that just does stand out. But I feel the same way, GB. I mean, maybe we should be more scared. Maybe we should be just frightened, like all the media members want to make us feel like we should for this Rams team. They're going to be a great challenge, and it's going to be really fun. But this thing is also still very much set up for us to be able to go out there and get this job done again. It's part of the benefits of being a team that winning it so young as we have, and part of the benefits of winning it in a way that, to me, teams still haven't kind of figured out why we're so good. And that, to me, maybe I'm going to be wrong on this one too. We'll see. But that's also one that gives me confidence on this, GB, to think, well, that if they ain't figuring us out, then the method continues to work, doesn't it? The method stops working once they kind of learn what was making the method so effective. But because there's not the replication across the board in mass from teams trying to do what we're doing, that they're all still kind of doing it in their own way, in their unique fashion. Maybe it's just my Super Bowl confidence bursting at the seams. But I find myself feeling pretty good. Appreciate you, GB. It's good to see you in the house, man. Wyatt, thank you for the $5 donation. Any idea on what they're doing about the White House visit? Did they decline? I feel like it's pretty late. I have, to be honest with you, Wyatt, I'm not sure about that. It says the Seattle Seahawks have not yet received or scheduled a White House invitation following their Super Bowl 60 victory. So, doesn't sound like either side's, and maybe there's just a lot going on right now with the government. So, don't know on that front, but it does sound like neither's come up yet as of yet. It does feel pretty late. You're right about that, Wyatt. We are getting where it's like, where would they go if they don't go within the next couple weeks? So maybe they just kind of call it a day on that one. We'll see. Appreciate you though, man. Thank you for the Viver. Megan in the house. It's good to see you, Megan. Lady from Dan Nanda says, I've been a Sam fan since his USC days. IMO, Sam was set up to fail at the Jets. What do you think? Yeah, I think he was set up to fail at the Jets from a couple different reasons, and it's only gotten worse in the last 9 months because now you have players openly coming out, and I spoke to it earlier in the stream, but it's no joke. Like, players are coming out and literally saying like they caught Adam Gase doing coke off of his desk, in his Jet days as a head coach. You sit there and you shake your head and you go just like, okay. And that's, you have Sam being brought in the Jets doing like they've always done with every quarterback they brought in the last 30 years. Let's just grab a guy. Who cares about the support structure? Who cares we got the head coaching job? Who cares whether or not we can set him up for success or whether we're actually setting him up for failure? Just get the quarterback. And this is why the Jets have been bad for so long, is that this sport, if you get things wrong and you really are just operating stupidly, the sport will punish you for that. And, that does go to show you on that kind of situation with this, with Sam. So, yeah, I think he was absolutely set up to fail, and every quarterback that's come through there has been set up to fail. And this is why having a formula approach, having a plan, not being reactive, not just trying to throw things up at the wall, there are franchises that do this. And I think people probably roll their eyes when they hear me sometimes talk about this stuff a little bit because they go, well, this is all so self-evident. I mean, shouldn't just every team be doing this? Shouldn't every front office and ownership be doing this? And in actuality, no. It is a little bit like Mickey Mouseville out here at times by some of these franchises and their approach. It's wild, especially these are billion-dollar franchises, multi-billion-dollar franchises, and you're being run with and take the Jets, for instance, it's like they're making decisions based off like Madden ratings last year or some crap. What are we doing here? Megan, thank you for the 52 months as a Hawks Nest member. Woo! 52 months, Megan. It's getting up there. Says, how about those Super Bowl rings? 12 diamonds for the 12s. Very, very classy done. It was big and garish, and that's how it should be. I want that thing taking up the whole freaking knuckle. And very cool with the double trophy on it as well. Love that, how they put that on that. It snaps off with a little pendant thing, which I know the players are going to take advantage of that too. So it can become like a necklace. The whole presentation was top notch. They do it right out there. And they're doing this right in the way that they celebrated it. Like dropping from the sky in front of the guys, like in the box, the whole custom box opens up and there's like a video screen in the back. It was a very cool little process they did for him. It's cool to see them get honored in that way. And I mean, Jody at this point, let's face it, it's like, you're getting to the end there. It's like you're kicking in all that money for all those diamond rings. You're kind of like, you could have just been like, yeah, just get him whatever. We're about out the door here anyway. just get him a gold band. We'll pawn it off on the next owner. Start making me think like, do you put that into the next guy? Like you're buying the team and you agree to pay for the Super Bowl rings. Industry Worth in the house. What's up, Industry Worth? It's good to see you. Have a super Sunday, Hawks Nest. You do as well, Industry Worth. It is good to see you, and thank you for the nice donation. I hope you're having a great Sunday as well. Much love to you as well on that side of things. Hope you're doing well out there. Megan with another $5. Thank you for that, Megan. Says, now I know I've asked this before, B, but do you think that the Rams trade for Garrett if they won the Super Bowl? If so, if not, why not? Well, Jake seems to feel pretty confidently that they would have done it regardless. And I think that there is some smoke to that in the respect that the Rams, based on the news reporting that came up about by the trade, they had been trying for a while to get Garrett from the Browns, that Snead had been in their ear for a bit. And if that's the case, then that would lead you to believe that that's not sort of a 1-year situation, but that's something that they're trying to do. And this does fit to a little bit of what we know about like John. John did this with, I believe, Marshawn Lynch, and he did this with Percy Harvin, and I think he also has been kind of doing this with Myles Garrett a couple different times, or not Myles Garrett, but Max Crosby, where you keep kind of checking in on a guy. You keep trying to bring him there. I do think that, I think that I could have still seen him made this trade even if they won the Super Bowl, because of the fact that they have kind of a decision to make with the two edges. Verse didn't get paid right now, but you do have a kind of a choice to make between Verse and Young. And did you want to pay both those two guys? Do you want to pay Young $27.5 million right now and then come around next year and maybe be paying Verse like $33-34 million per year? Or if you're paying those kind of prices, would be wanting to get the full meal deal type player in Garrett? And that if we're going that, if you're going that length, let's just take it the extra 25% and just go get a Garrett. I think that I could be sold on this being that they still would have done it even if they won the Super Bowl. Now, would they have done both the McDuffie and Garrett trade if they won the Super Bowl? Probably not. Probably the Garrett trade, but probably not the McDuffie trade. That would be my take on that one. Industry Worth, you're awesome. Thank you for all the dollar donations. Appreciate you for that. Very, very, very kind of you. Very kind of you. Ooh, another dono here. Do another dollar donation. Love your cat pictures as well. A couple of very cute cats you got right there. I got a couple of cute ones too. They're pretty good competition right there. Eon 210. Thank you for the $10 donation. What's up, Bredo? I think we're in one of the best positions any team has ever been in. The league not understanding is baffling. This is just the foundation of the empire. Let's run it forward.
The power of the dark side.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is one where you tend to see the Super Bowl winner, I think, draw a lot more of the copycats and imitators. And that within the imitation and that it becomes the dissection and the autopsy of your team, and they got all your organs out on the table and they've pulled a couple of bones out and they're looking through it all and they're doing little microscopic tests of the DNA and they understand what ticks and then they can understand how to counter it. It's like, learning a contagion and like how to, figure out the antibody situation to put a vaccine together, kind of situation. Like you're doing the same thing when you're looking at a great team to try to unpack how they are great. And one thing that stood out to me in watching this that I've got to say it is echoes of two different separate places as I go through this off season that they get me really excited and make me kind of try not to get too gassed up on this, Eon, but at the same time, it does ring of this. And that is the Bill Walsh beginning of his era and the Belichick dynasty era beginning in the spot as it did there in the first part of the dynasty era with the Patriots. And what I mean by the comparison on this too is that both of these two Super Bowl champions won, and the league really didn't understand why they won. Like the league sort of looked at them winning of like, a broken clock. It was a little closer to that than it was more of look at the greatness of what they did. And it was like the Patriot teams that won there with Brady and Brady having to, kind of be the game manager, getting by there for the first couple of champions. It's like, it's a really good roster. It's a really good roster, but I mean, it's just, they're just kind of like, they had a good run there. Like, no, they didn't have a good run. They were doing a lot of different intelligent things that were separating themselves from the rest of the competition. And the way the Bill operated and the combination of him and Brady through the years on that and what he did with his defenses and personnel and how they approached things so differently from other teams. And teams took a long period of time to kind of start to understand that this was actually something that was going to be sustainable and was built in many ways to last. And much like that with the Bill Walsh West Coast offense, where at that time you had still so many teams that were still doubling back down into running the ball 24/7. It's like right as that era, I mean, he cracked us out of that era of everybody running the ball all over the place. But it took them all the way through the 80s of the decade to kind of finally realize that. Where now by the end of the 80s, you've got the Houston Oilers run and shoot and Dan Marino out there chucking it all over the place. And it just, it was more proliferated a league of passers at that point. And Walsh really the guy that set that, but they won what in like 84 was their first championship for I believe the Niners, if I'm not, it was 83 or 84. And so it just does feel a little similar to that, Eon, where they don't feel like they understand why we won. They're passing it a little off to not luck, but like everything just kind of broke right in your favor. And it does give you a little bit of confidence in the future of like, well, if they don't really know why we did in the first place, why can't we just do it again in the same kind of fashion, especially when nobody's really trying to replicate the same kind of style to the length of the degree we are, as far as being as exact in the way that we try to create this formula. So run it forward, man. Foundation of an empire, potentially a foundation of one hell of a great type of run here in the NFL and whatever that can mean in this sport. But they're as well situated now in the future to make this a Super Bowl window that can be elongated, that can be tremendously successful, that can stack a couple of different chips up. Because it's all being done so right and organically, and it's built correctly, and it's not built with some sort of like, let's hit the fast forward, let's just dump a bunch of void year money into 2029 and then live for today. It's not that at all. It really has been done right. But it'll be interesting to see how this goes this year with this and this theory on how I'm seeing this kind of go. And you're feeling the same way, Ian, of just, it feels like we had a great chance to do this really young roster, and then it just doesn't feel as well like this league still kind of quite taking us seriously. And therefore, because of it, more of it being like, why won't they take us seriously? It's not that type of energy. It's more of like, they're not taking us seriously. It's more of that kind of energy, They're still not figuring us out. It ain't like, why can't we get any respect? No. It's, wait, they don't still understand why we doing what we're doing. They don't still get what we don't. They're still not doing the thing. They're not going to, okay. It's a bit more like that, generally. Oh, Jimmy's in the house. What's up, Jimmy? It's good to see you, brother. Rams got better. Buzzards got worse. Enough said. Cope. Hope you're having a good day, Jimmy. It's good to see you in the house, my man. Good to see you in the house. I'll take buzzards. Appreciate all the donations, you guys. Very kind of you. Very kind of you. Let's see where the chat is today. Cope, Darnold, and Purdy make plenty of throws that if Darnold and Mahomes made, media and casual fans would be going insane. Indeed, they've definitely got, and Purdy as well. I sometimes knock him on some of the stuff he does, but he definitely can make some pretty wild throws. He's as ballsy as they come to with that rock. And remember, if you're wanting me to respond, just be Brando, Hawk's Nest. Always have a lot of chat discussion, so that lets me know you want me to respond to you. Yeah, Corey, the story did come out there with Lyric Jackson having the domestic thing, and that's probably going to cost him 6 games. The weird thing is with this, too, is it's, the way Jake was sort of talking and speaking to him offline on the round table, like, I not that this is where I think it's absolutely going, but there's a chance that this gets to a potential for them of even thinking about cutting him. The that they don't mess around with the situation. They don't, I mean, the only thing maybe keeping him as much on the roster is their lack of depth to this degree of it. But that's a tough break for them if they lose 6 games. This division came down so tight last year where you needed every single game, and you're losing a left tackle for 6 games like that, especially when you have a quarterback you're trying to keep upright who's of advanced age. Not good. Not good. And the NFL can just kind of come in. They don't need a conviction. They can just come in and put down a suspension now without a second thought about it. Players kind of give up that control a couple of years ago. Yeah, even on the verdict, you don't have to wait the verdict, Corey. So it's the crazy part about this a little bit is, we had 15 years ago, the players were having off the field issues all over the place. And the players that were doing good and were towing the line and not having legal problems came to the NFL and they said, we're tired of this kind of casting aspersion on us, the players, and what it's doing reputationally to the rest of us. We'll just willingly give this part of this thing up in the collective bargaining for you to have kind of like dictator say over players to be able to put in suspensions on guys, whether there's convictions or not. And just getting arrested is enough. And if you're a second time offender like Alaric is, that's it. It's all but guaranteed he's getting the 6 games. Noob, I like Adam Gase a little bit more now. Adam Gase. Oh my God. Yeah, Jets are awful. News says Adam Gase got so high in coke he thought Sam Darnold could run Peyton Manning's offense. They get it pure out there in New York, noob. You know what I mean? Right off the boat. Right off the boat. The Knicks won. I don't know what it is with New York teams though. They win where they all got to start like going into like tearing crap apart and flipping cars and starting fight. Like, really? How about just a couple high fives? Yeah, Kendricks, they'll definitely be without Alaric for the first couple of games. This would be somehow hilariously poetic if John Schneider trades for Bruce. It would be very funny. I'm game. The memes alone. Catless Brandon, God love oversimplification and narrative-driven BS. It's everywhere, man. It's something you see all over the place on stuff, and it's wild how it can kind of run things as far as being the ultimate truth in people's minds on stuff. But you got to get into a bit of the deeper lands on this to understand it, I think. Oh, here we go. Jordan, thank you for the $10 donation, Mr. M. Jordan. It's good to see you in the house too, brother. 4 Super Bowl appearances over 3 different coaching staffs with 2 Super Bowl wins in the last 25 years, and the media still doesn't give the Seahawks respect as an organization. I wouldn't want it any other way. Amen. It's to me a bit of a badge of honor at this point, and that we'll just do this, in the silence of their attention, and they don't have to watch any of what we're going to do, and we're just going to keep knocking them out and keep putting down a pattern of greatness, and that this is the standard, this is the model here, and this is how we're going to do it. And it's been a great run. It's run where really there is that melancholy you feel as the sale is about to come down for the Seahawks, and it does sound like we're getting better. We're getting better understanding that it does seem like we're going to get a really good owner here by what we're kind of hearing subtly in that way, but what the Allens did and what they showed, and all things, there's lessons within. All things, there's things that you can take away and extrapolate, and stuff that can help your organization out or help other organizations out if they can learn about like how to get things right. And the Seattle Seahawks organization is a case study. And as an NFL team, if you have an owner that's not all in on really winning, and what I mean by that is, really putting your pocketbook down in every way, not making the profit margin the ultimate goal at every turn, but that sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice profit for winning. And are you willing to do that, or are you not willing to do that? And that's a demarcation line where there's a lot of owners that land on one side to the other. And Allen came in here, Paul did, and said that I will not be on the other side ever at all. I'm going to lay my money down. I'm going to spend. We're going to build a winner here, as hard as that seems like that sounds or can be done. And you talk about 97, felt like almost an impossibility. What players could you ever get to play out in Seattle? How could you ever instill a winning legacy here? How could you ever get that in point? And Paul came in and just built it right up from the ground up. Starts with getting the right coach in and the right front office and the money, my money, the purse strings. And then once you have that, you can turn an organization around in a heartbeat. It's one thing that scares me with the Cardinals is if Bidwell ever sells. And then actually you get dangerous because Bidwell's on the other side of that. So you don't have to worry about that with him. But we're never going to get it. And we don't need it. Don't care about the respect. And if anything, we can maybe use it, as I was saying here, to Neon on this. Excuse me, Eon. Was just that maybe we can use it to our benefit. And that it can ultimately prove to be one that, because they ignore us, they don't pay attention to us, they don't learn us, they don't learn why we're winning, why we're good, we can excel because of it. Maybe I'm dreaming. But I don't know, it feels like it adds up to me. Banker, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, at this point, Brando, sell Cope merch. I just might have to at this point. Jimmy's giving me some ideas here. I am definitely getting some ideas here. And it'd be I'd have it's a Cope merch, and then I have little sad ram eyes, over the top of Cope. Banker, little sad, little droopy sad ram eyes on just says Cope. Maybe Charbonnet's hand, on the bottom of the writing, I'd have Charbonnet's hand coming down and picking up the ball off the ground, off the turf. Just his hand down, right? Because it's so iconic. You don't even need to see the rest of it. Just the hand to the ball. You give me ideas here, Banker. Jimmy, thank you for the $2 donation. Says Rams will sign Kyle Decker. I think you mean Tyler Decker. No worries, we daddy. Maybe. My guy's been sitting on a couch, dropping 20 Bud Lights a day for the last 2.5 months, man. What version of Decker are you getting? Is what I ask. Plus, where are you going to get the money to do that? You got extensions to get done. You got Darnold still to sign. You ain't got money for that. You ain't got no money for that. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. When Zam gets his second ring, he'll be in rarefied air. Rarefied modern NFL air. Brady, Mahomes, Eli, Peyton, Elway, and Montana are the only guys I can think of in the last 30 years. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. I was just thinking too, even all time, Randall, there was quite a few different ones that were through the 80s. Even in Giants that won 2 Super Bowls, kind of won the Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks, Hostetler, Sims. Yeah. Washington had at one point Doug Williams doing it, and then they had Mark Rippon doing it. So I think even if you expanded that, Randall, into NFL historically speaking, you got your Bart Starrs and your Bradshaws. I think Staubach won a couple. Montana obviously got in there a couple. But it's not a long list, to your point. And it's a list that outside of Eli on that, everybody's a no-brainer Hall of Famer, that is on that list at that point too. So would be very cool if he could, especially for all of the Sam folks that just kept just hammering him, still just hammer the hell out of him, mercilessly at times in the way they can. Good to see you, Randall. Hope you're doing good, man. This cat hair in my nose. Ricky Ricardo, thank you for the $10 donation, Ricky. And you guys are just amazing as ever on the dono fronts. Thank you for that. Really appreciate y'all. Ricky says, hi, Brando. In Darnold's worst games, what were the biggest factors behind his struggles? Was it primarily the defense disrupting him, or most of the issues self-inflicted? Keep up the great work. It's good. It's a good, great question. Great question. Let's go first to the Rams' first game of the year. First interception. Sam drops back. It's his back foot. Timing based throw. 1, 2, 3, 4 off play action. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. So my thing that I come to time and time again on Sam is the issues emerge that can be controlled and that are too much. Come from a couple different areas, trying to do too much, not using his legs, not throwing the ball away, trying to do something too much too late in the play. These are the things that tend to be the things that really are the ones that pop up that are the biggest issues at play. So this play, for instance, you're to the back foot. Okay. You're looking through, you're going, I don't have a way to go to either two of these guys. I've got Kupp coming back on a comeback route, and he hasn't even gotten to the point that he's sinking the comeback. It's a very deep comeback at that. He's not there. I've got a defender starting to get walked in front of me here into the backfield. This is where you'd love to see Sam break the pocket. Okay, guy's getting walked back. Look to his left there. You can see he's got an ability at that point of break to your left and extend this play. But he's dead setting this on, let me wait for Cooper to get into his comeback. Let me wait for Cooper to get into his comeback. So we get a little further. Cooper's in his comeback. Cooper gets his jersey pulled a little bit here so he can't get as much separation on the comeback. Sam is throwing off his back foot, can't put as much velocity on the ball that allows the safety to undercut the route and make the interception. So one of those places where you step a couple steps to your left, be a little bit more certain about your throw. With pressure in your face, you probably don't want to try to throw this throw blind. It's a long developing play and the pressure is too much in your face to be throwing that. Use your legs, extend it away. And if you can just break the pocket by 4 steps to your left, you could throw this ball away if there's nobody there free. And then you can just live to get back and play another down. So that was the first interception, right? Go back to the second interception. This one is just a little bit more of a not doing too much, but it's a little bit more of just take the sack. Sam Bradford absolutely blows the stunt. No big shocker. Bradford will do that. He'll do that. So Sam, right here, you're getting a free rusher off of the stunt, untouched. Charbonnet can't see him. Now, Sam's perspective here, he's going, dude, I've got my 2 offensive linemen there, and then I've got Charbonnet. I should have the time to make this throw. But he hits this back foot, and he can tell the guy's going to have a free run right at his face. It's where you got to have at times, beyond throwing it away or using your legs, sometimes you just have to take the sack. Sometimes taking the sack is not the worst outcome. This is the worst outcome. So trying to do too much, trying to force something rather than, hey, sometimes there's going to be dead plays. Sometimes there's just times we're not going to get it off. It's okay. That's going to happen over the course of the game, and that's outside of your control. You can't control Bradford blowing a block on a stunt route. Here, again, not as bad. This is a little bit more of on time. There's a little bit of a hitch here and tries to throw this late, just never locates the safety over the top. So this is just a blatant bad interception, and quite frankly, there isn't really anything you're going to be able to do on these kind of throws. With a timing-based quarterback, there are times you're going to make these type of throws, and you're just going to choose wrongly. I'd say, like, staring a guy down doesn't help. If you can kind of try to look things off, you can help yourself with that. I think this happened in the first interception in the Rams' second game where he's kind of staring the guy down. It's kind of a great play by the defender, but Sam maybe being able to do a little bit more rather than kind of staring down your guy. Try to look off the defender if you can to keep that closing away. But then you've got the final interception of that game right here where you're on their side of the football field. You're late in the play again. You're under pressure again. and you try jump pass. So this is a great game of a representation, I think, of the Sam correction. And this is the best one from last year. And looking at this to your question, because you've got 2 interceptions there, Ricky, that are absolutely Sam doing too much. And this isn't to get Sam to play perfect. Perfect's not going to exist. And I don't want my quarterback playing perfect. I want my quarterback open to being willing to throw interceptions, because he's going to make some ballsy ass throws in between there. He's going to make some high leverage throws in between there. So I can live with the Arroyo up the seam throw off the hitch. Don't like it. Love to see you look off the guy, but I can live with it. I can maybe even live with the stunt, and that you think you got the 3 guys blocking to your side there. You got 3 for 2, and that should allow you to at least get to your back foot to then let your throw get off cleanly, and that you got a guy untouched off the stunt is ridiculous. I can put up with that. But the other 2 throws, this is what will magnify it. You will get some cost of doing business with Sam, in my opinion, on some of the interceptions with him, because he's got a little bit of that Brett Favre in him of like, I can fit it in there. I can get into that tight window. And sometimes he can. And that's going to lead to some interceptions. And that's the price of doing business with Sam. And I'm willing to pay it. But it's the other stuff you got to then chop off. It's the late in the down, the unwillingness to throw it away, the unwillingness to take a sack, the unwillingness to use your legs. That's the big thing we also saw on this epiphany that he had throughout the end of the year, is he used his legs a lot better through the back half of the schedule than he did through the front half. And that it's that you're not eliminating all mistakes. You're eliminating those that are the controllable ones, the ones where you can really see in retrospect of, hey, I can recognize when I'm late in the play of like, ooh, this is when sometimes stuff goes bad. I got to be careful here a little bit. I've had some trepidatious spots here. Let me just be on my toes on this a little bit, rather than being loose and free and easy and just letting it all roll. So, that Ram game was a really great game at kind of showing that. And there are games last year where there were interceptions that were, pure and true. And that, again, the Ramsey interception in the Steelers game where, Cooper's running an out route and he makes the break and you see him off the break to have some separation. Ramsey just closes the distance on the separation wonderfully and makes a great play. That's going to happen. That stuff's going to happen. But the 1964 jump pass, yeah, you don't have to do that. That's not a necessity. And if you think back to that Rams game, you can afford to have the couple picks. You just remove off the other 2, we win the game. Don't have to come back. Don't have to play the perfect brand of football, but just eliminate that stuff that's very specifically there. You'll take yourself very far in that manner, Ricky. So it's a great question, man. It is a great question. And it's really the self-inflicted issues come back again from trying to do too much, not using your legs, not throwing it away, and not taking it a sack. You can kind of chart it down to like an unwillingness at times to go in any of those other 4 directions. And thus it takes you to an end result of trying to kind of wing it late to a bad spot on the field. Love the question. John says the Rams put all their eggs in one basket with Garrett. He goes down and that is it for them. Go Hawks. It's a point that I've been trying to raise, and I think the Alaric Jackson puts a spotlight on this, and I think that it opened up even a guy like Jake's eyes over there on the round table, in that you shot your shot. You swung your swang. Your ammunition is not endless. And they've painted themselves into this corner, and it may be a wonderful corner, a championship corner. But it's not a corner to where now you can pivot over to this corner, or you can go over to this corner. And there's not a lot you can do about the depth at this stage of the game. If you want to attack your depth, you need to do it earlier in the offseason. So this Conklin idea may make sense, but how good is he at this point? How far off of a drop-off is it at that point? What's the cost going to be? Do you have the money? Because he's going to want to be paid $7, $8, $9, $10 million. Do you have that money in the book? You're trying to get extensions done. And it just goes to show you that whether it's an Alaric Jackson or it's like, okay, we'll have a Alaric Jackson and then you lose a Dotson too. What happens if you lose 2 parts of that offensive line? How does that look? Does it look significantly different? And it's been a bit of what I've been saying about this. It kind of go place by place throughout this team. And you see it over and over again where the depth is just missing. They've got the frontline guys. They've got the starters. And if the starters can stay on the field, and the Rams have done a hell of a job with health over the last couple of years of keeping guys on the field, if they can do that, then it'll work out great. But if you do sustain a couple of those injuries for a team that's played a lot of games over the last few years, and you can make an argument that there's maybe some beat up bodies over there a little bit. Well, I'm picking up what you're putting down there, John, where this is definitely one where it can work, but man, you sure like to have the depth. You sure like to have the reinforcement of insurance. There's no insurance right now for the Rams, in my opinion. Chris, need to cue up a clip of the old Lamb report from Almost Live every time there's a weak attempt at cracking on us. Rams house, and the Rams schedule starts tough too. Yeah, that's the tough part about the Alaric Jackson suspension is it comes at the toughest part of your schedule too. You mentioned, great point. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well a little bit, just of like, boy, yeah, it's going to be likely to come down and then come down. I mean, either it just, you just go, oof. Not good. Not good. And this gavel, it's one where I'm sure a lot of Ram fans are going, well, maybe they'll think about it and they'll look into the details of it. It's like the history of Goodell's on this is that he just comes down and just sort of just swings especially domestic stuff. It's like automatic mode now. And it's some of that blowback from 15 years ago where it was a little bit more Wild West and, players there'd be a victim and the player would pay off the victim and then suddenly everything would go away. And then, that it just reputationally was causing some issues. And the fact it's a second offense. Dr. Siak, Rams trade away a young freaking verse for an expensive rental in Garrett. Not a good move by Les Schneed. Last time he said F them picks, he got his ass beat in the playoffs. Let him know, Dr. Siak. Definitely a weird part of that deal for me is the verse, giving up the verse part. Garrett's the better player, but when you're making a move like that, you really do want to make it to add on what you got. And come back in that depth, not to hammer this over and over again, but the depth part of it and your edge depth there is right now, Josiah Stewart is all you got edge depth wise. And it sure would be nice to have 4 stack of depth you could go through and rotate through, and they don't have it. So it'll, it kind of does, to me, it does put a little bit of and maybe that's why I feel as good as I do at the end of the day on this. And I'm not as frightened by it as it's kind of like you did have to kind of do it's not a half a dozen, 1 6 another, but you had to do, cut off 3 to get the half dozen kind of thing. Diego, how's Pumpkin? She's needing love right now. Very restless. Very restless. Corey, AB, how are you doing? The reason the national media is making excuses, we made them look silly with their projections that they don't know what they're talking about. It's a good point, Corey, because now if you do come back and you fall back down to earth this year, they can be like, see, we told you guys it was all 1 year. Yeah, we were off last year, but that was just a random thing. And then we're really made to look right now, if you think about it. It could be a little bit what's at play there. I think it does show a little bit of when they have takes and outlooks of things of teams, they have a hard time of transitioning their original take over with new information, and they will just kind of double back down onto the old, I think, hoping it eventually becomes right. To your point, about to make them look silly again though this year. Or he says they hate us because they ain't us. Nia says, will James be a man and show up when the Rams fall flat? I doubt it, since he's like to play faux tough guy on the internet. No, they never do when they lose on that. They were not when they're nice guys and they're cool. They do when they're coming in with sort of the I'm going to be the dickish tone of things. Then they're never going to come back. They'll go quiet as a mouse. Banker says, Brandon, my only criticism of Darnold is that I was 0-3 when I started him last year. Well, he's a great quarterback of the Hawks. I don't know if I'd say he's a great fantasy quarterback. So I would definitely give you a little bit of a asterisk on the assessment of Sam. There's game day ready and then there's fantasy day ready. Those are 2 different states of readiness right there, Banker. You know what I mean? I don't know if I trust Those that turnover price is a little stiff on the fantasy side of it for quarterbacks. Hawks Ski Band Jimmy, I'm gonna ask you, man, to be respectful of my mod going forward on this, buddy. And if trash talk's fine. I have tried to kind of I appreciate the donations, but I'm not just keeping you on here on the channel for just donations. We're here for chat. So I'm noticing here in the chat today, you're going strong again, and you're starting to go at individual people within my chat, especially my mod, who is on here doing free work, helping my chat do exactly what I've told you is the purpose of our channel. So it just seems increasingly that you're just here to just kind of come in to be a dick on stuff and not really want to engage in discussion. And that's what I'd like to do. I don't care if you're a Ram fan, 49er fan, Hawk fan. We're trying to engage in discussion. And if you're just going to come in and say, you want to say Rams or the Hawks daddy, fine. You start talking about my mod and you're saying you're my mod, like you're out of line. And there's no purpose to this. You're not supplying or helping anything out at this point. So, make your peace in your heart with what you got to do and either get right or get out. That simple. So it's one off on this one, my man. Okay. Take it whichever direction you want to take it. We only have one rule here. We got no rules in this place. The only one rule we ask is respect. It's the one little one. Last year was Darnold's first year throwing to these guys. It takes real game reps to get timing down with receivers. Agreed. I would say even the practice reps, even in addition to the off season of one off season, I think there's this benefit where it's like, okay, if you have, one off season with this receiver, I threw, 379 times in total between training camp and OTAs to this one guy, and then I get a second and I get a double that. And I get in a place where now we're 1,500 reps together, and it just, every rep you're getting gets you more in alignment in that timing. And we saw it last year with Shaheed on a variety of different throws where Sam's connection and his timing with Kupp and GSN was much different than Rashid. And he just didn't have that. But you're right. That's something that you do gain with time. And the more reps you got with it, the better it's going to get. Kyle from South Park, thank you for the $10 donation. Seems like Marlon Humphrey doesn't want to be in Baltimore. Being at the parade, questioning firing Harbaugh and Orr. On social media, he questioned Hamilton's effort and now saying the Ravens jerseys are trash. Yeah, he's been on one, as they say, this offseason a little bit, and that there seems to be a weird thing here where there's, and this is just my sense of it. I mean, a Raven fan could tell me differently, but there's a weird sense of dissatisfaction. It would seem that Marvin has there being in Baltimore. But then there's also this weird thing where Baltimore doesn't want to let him go either. And that's because they're kind of thinking they can have a bounce back year this year. But it does seem like he's been on a little bit of a quest, a vision quest, if you were, to get his ass out of Baltimore. And I don't know if it's just the love of Mike and he wants to get over here. I mean, I don't even know if that'd be where he'd want to do Kyle right now. Even if he got released right now, it's like, I don't know if this would be the first landing spot for you necessarily, because you're going to come here and become the fourth cornerback on the pecking order. Do you want to be that? Is that what you want to do? Maybe, I mean, he must really like playing for Mike at that point if he was willing to do that. But it does seem like it does not seem like he wants to be in Baltimore and he's doing everything he can to be like, just let me go. Just let me go. And they're over there just like, no, you got one more year in you. We know it. We know we're going to let you go and you be an all-pro. Part of the problem here too, I think, is just Ravens cornerback room isn't exactly stout, as it stands, Kyle. So that's probably a little bit of it, but it is weird. You get to if I'm the point with the general manager where my players, I'm sorry, but if you're at a Super Bowl parade of another team, I call me petty. You know what I mean, Kyle? Okay, we'll let you move on. Okay. I mean, I just kind of feel that way. I wouldn't take it personally. I'd just be like, he doesn't. Okay, you're the Seahawks. You're the Seahawks Super Bowl parade. Why are you there? One of those things. But a weird situation, man. M. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation. Hey, B, I think I can afford to go to training camp this year. I heard there'll be a meetup at Fast Fashion Brewing this year. Indeed, that is the tentative plan. So I'm trying to work on the details myself right now. There's a little bit of a scramble thing going on here as far as kind of trying to get my details of figuring this out right now. Got a couple of things personally that are kind of bouncing up in the background here that are just kind of adding some issues on my end with it. But I'm going to do my darnest to get down there as I can, because I would love to do so. And yeah, it does sound like the boys have been able to get things set up there at Fast Fashion for a potential meetup. So it would be interesting to see if we'd have a decent turnout there or not on that side of it. But I will keep you updated as I kind of learn. I'm going to know in the next couple of days for sure, one way or the other here, Jordan. Just have a couple things kind of in the background that have popped up that I'm trying to take care of to get a certainty there on that one. Kyle from South Park, thank you for the $5 donation. And oh, by the way, it'd be the first week of August, Jordan, if I'm there. It'll be, I think, in that time frame is what I'd be looking at. We'll have to see on still TBD on my end. TBD this year for sure. Kyle, thank you for the $5 donation. How many times does Max have to say he loves the Raiders? Who is he trying to convince? The more he says it, the more I don't believe him. Yeah, I mean, it's a strange situation to get to the place that a guy's going to be moved like he was at the process he's moved, a failed physical, and then you come back and then you just play for the team. It would tend to be that, you know, you get to the place of being open to being moved and they're open to moving you and you get moved. And I mean, to your point in this, Kyle, if you think about it from the standpoint of, well, if Max was having to simply understand that, okay, look, you're looked at as kind of damaged goods because of the surgery and all the knee stuff. And now everybody's got this, whether this is true or not, this is the thing that's out there and you're up against that, and too bad, so sad, but that's just the reality of it. And now we have to wait this out and get you back on the field before we can get you to a place of moving you. So you've got to be a good soldier and say all the right things so you don't depress your value further, thus hindering us from being able to move you that much easier. And so you kind of can understand that this falls in alignment if that is where he's at with this a little bit, Kyle. I think that this has got to be a place, if I'm in the Raiders standpoint of you've played this stupid game for now a long time. And the Browns just played the same stupid game. And win stupid games, win stupid prices. And with that, I mean, is that you hold on, we'll get better down the road. We'll get more down the road. We'll get more down the road. And then you could come to find you don't get nothing. And then you just keep holding and holding and holding. And you end up just kind of, you're holding. And so I know right now they're thinking, well, if he goes back out and he's super dynamic, then trade deadline, we can go get a first into this for him. And that's more than probably at most you're getting maybe a first right now, maybe at most. I mean, might only be like a second and a third rounder right now. So maybe they get that value back, but I would offer to the Raiders, if I was talking to their front office, this is the very same thing that you did last year, not trading him to Seattle at the deadline, where you would have had 2 first-round picks and you thought you could get more later on, and turns out you're not. So why is it going to work this time now when it didn't work then? That'd be my question to them on this. So we'll see what happens with that situation. I think that he does get moved by the deadline as the at the latest situation there, Kyle. But I do also think that the Eagles are going to try to make a pretty heavy run at him or some point or another. I think we would be aggressive, but I think the Eagles are going to get very, very aggressive in this situation. Kyle from South Park, thank you for the 5 months as a Hawks Nest member. Over, under on 5 crash outs from Puka this year? Depends. Do they have him under a contract extension or not, Kyle? OTAs 2 weeks ago. Oh, isn't it wildly coincidental? Kobe Turner and Bryce Young both they got braces on their knees off the side of the field of practice. What a coincidence. 2 guys that'd love to have a contract extension right now, and OTAs are taking it. My knee's acting up a little bit. Those contract injuries, man, Kyle. They come up wildly just out of left field, just suddenly. And you suddenly can't actually like see them on MRI, and you can't like feel like a lump or something swollen. It's there though. It's there though, those contract injuries. And you don't pay a guy like this and you get cute and you're like, well, you got to prove another year. I mean, you got the rehab and you're biting on ladies and you're just going to have to prove another year for Puka. And you get a guy a little bit bitter about that and be like, haven't I proven enough? Haven't I shown you enough? You know, and I think if you do get to a guy like Puka and you get that situation, that could be something that could draw this first, giving him a little bit. This is why you want to give these guys sometimes the security, is that when that, like, I haven't been paid and I'm trying to earn my way in this year, I got to get it done. Now's the time to get it done. And the pressure, you know, extra pressure that's not necessary. That's why we say right now with the Rams and Garrett's trade and the way that they've kind of set this up for this year and trying to like, this is the year. It's like, well, you've done a great job of really trying, especially if Darnold comes back, of really souping it up. But then you have put a lot on this year then from a pressure standpoint that it's kind of a bit of a now or never situation to that degree, I think. Banker Alpries, thank you for the $5 donation. Banker. Asking you to remember, but 1 to 10, how confident were you in the Super Bowl versus Steelers, Broncos, and Patriots the first time? Bonus versus the Bulls with the Supersonics. Great questions. I'll go backwards to front. The Bulls to the Supersonics was not confident. And the reason for that would be that, look, the Sonics were really good, and I thought we could hang with the Bulls and that we could give them a tough series. But I'm one of those old heads when it comes to Michael Jordan that will tell you Michael Jordan's the best basketball player that's ever played, and that the LeBron debate is actually kind of silly. And it's silly as much, not silly, but it's like, you get the LeBron people are all about with the stats stuff, and it's like this stats and everything. And it's just like, you had to feel Michael on the floor and how he played and just what he did, how he tilted the court in the way that he did was just second to none. And you throw in the Rodman angle of that. It wasn't just Pippen. It was then the Rodman Bulls in there too. And what Rodman did and how just pairing him with Jordan was just unfair in so many ways. It gave him the ultimate hard hat guy to do all the dirty work. And it just made them very hard to beat at that point. Fun teams. I love the Sonic teams in the 90s were just so much fun to watch, man. Fast break, up and down basketball at a time when it was a little more stagnant sport. Confidence. Steelers Super Bowl, I was very confident. Young Roethlisberger, still a baby. A Steelers team that had just gotten kind of hot, 9-7 at the end of the year, and had gotten into the playoffs just kind of right at the end and just kind of magicked their way in through it a bit. I thought we were by far the more superior team. And I think I still maintain we're the superior team. That I think that's of all the sporting events I've ever watched in my life, Banker, baseball, basketball, football, college level, any sport I've ever watched in my life, there's no game that's been more closer in my mind to feeling like it was fixed than that Steelers game in that Super Bowl. But we had a great team. We had earned the right to be there. We were the number 1 seed. We had really, blow our way really through the playoffs to getting there. But that's just a whole nother story for another time. So very confident. 1 to 10 so I guess Bulls, Sonics, I'd say it was probably like a 4. So Steelers Super Bowl is probably like an 8.5, 9. Broncos one was easily a 9. Just I thought we were the better team. That Legion of Boom team was just out of control. The Pats game in the first time would have been about a 5, Banker. And the reason for that being that the Packer game basically cost us like a lot to win that game. We had Earl Thomas was operating off a broken wing. Richard Sherman was operating off a broken wing. You had the night before the game, or 2 nights before the game on the final walkthrough, Cam Chancellor tears his MCL. So your secondary, is just cut to pieces walking into that game while you're going up against Tom Brady. That's worrisome at that point. So it was very much more kind of it felt more 50-50 because of that. But the The Broncos game and the second Patriots game are obviously the two games where I was supremely confident. Great question. 12 for life. Go Hawks. Thank you for becoming a member of the channel again, man. Welcome back aboard on the Hawks Nest side of it. Love the question there, Banker. Yeah, Alaric might get off. That's kind of my point on that tribe of that's why I wanted to mention that thing with Goodell and how the system comes down with the suspensions and the automatic mode, and it doesn't take proof and it doesn't take convictions, and it's a kangaroo court in the way that it works. And the players gave up that control about 10 years ago voluntarily, and that does now mean, unfortunately for guys like Alaric, if you're a second-time offender like he is in this situation, you're going to get a bit of the hammer. Charlie Unicorn, Rams are top heavy. A slow start might spiral the team out of contention. Definitely be a hindrance if they don't start strong, because to Rams House's point on that, it's a very tough schedule to begin things, including that Australian trip right out the gate. So much crashing out just comes on. It just comes off. Honestly, I just think he's over in Baltimore. Yeah, I just think he's kind of over it. And this is where I think Baltimore's got to embrace this a bit of like, look, sometimes situations just get a little stale, and you can play the blame game, or why is he even mad? What right does he have to even be mad? What is he so pissed about? It's just, sometimes it just gets to the point where it's like, look, it goes this way, you know? Jordan, I have 2 orange cats, brothers. Orange cats are awesome. They're a lot of work, but they are fun. Jack says, what's up, Brando? Big fan of the round table. I enjoy your back and forth between you and Jake 100%. Well, thank you for that, Jack. I love working with Jake. I think people get a little bit sometimes personal with this stuff, and it's as much meant to be, hopefully, and that it comes off of just fun football discussion. And two guys that, know ball and want to have good, fun back and forth debate, and that they happen organically when they occur. We don't set them up or try to, force them to occur, but they're going to happen, man, and I got a lot of respect for what Jake does. He works really hard at it. We have our share of disagreements for sure. And the hope is at least that they are entertaining when we're having it and they're not super cringy and where you're kind of like looking away or whatever, but they're actually, it's interesting. And we get maybe a little bit closer to the truth off some of those debates. But thank you, man. Appreciate it. Right back at you. And he says, I'll say it again. The Rams lost the Panthers last year. They deserve what they got. F the Rams. Ricky, Seahawks forced the Rams into the most 3-and-outs in first matchup. Best recipe for success is winning the turnover battle while consistently getting the offense off the field with 3-and-outs. That's it. They're off the field 3-and-outs. You win the field position battle by how you defend and punt and all that stuff. You got a consistent couple of drives without the turnovers. You're getting your points. This is where you can kind of get your wins grinded out in that way. That's the formula, man. Thank you, Catalyst. Yeah, the soccer's going right now, Industry Worth. They got the World Cup. Humphrey trying to go to KC. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Tell us Rams are the top heavy gym, bro. One kick to the legs and Jami Bravo is down. That was good. Very top heavy, man. It's just look at there. Go over to ESPN, check out that depth chart on there, and it's eye opening when you just go down the line of it compared to the starters, especially. Tribe top heavy. What the hell does that even mean? Should they be bottom heavy? Like top heavy would be like meaning like this. This would be top heavy right here. So if you look at this here, Tribe, wonderful starters. Stafford, Kyron Williams, Puka, Devontae, great. Tight ends, wouldn't doubt both the starters or the depth there. Tight end, you're great, right? Defense, you can flip out, obviously at this point, we can flip out verse for Myles Garrett, Turner, Poona Ford, Frisk. Really good. Really, really good starters, really good front end. Secondary's fine, good, solid. I don't think it's great, solid. McDuffie's obviously the thing. Okay, well, we go to the depth here in the second and the third string. So when we say top heavy, this is what we're talking about. Going from Kobe Turner to Laurel Murchison, going from Poona Ford to Ty Hamilton, going from Byron Young or Myles Garrett to Josiah Stewart. I think you got running back and tight end where you've got that depth built in, and I'd give that solidly. But everywhere else, Stafford to Ty Simpson. If Devontae Adams goes down, I'm going to Kenyatta Mumfield or Jordan Winningham. I can't see how even the biggest of Ram fan out there wouldn't say that that's a pretty far leap from one to the other. That's a pretty big cliff from one to the other. So when we say top heavy, we're saying you got the top, you got the guys where if you're healthy, if you're rolling right, if you can stuff that camel through the eye of that particular needle, because most NFL teams do need depth, but if you can pull that off, you got the starters to get it done. But if you get a multitude of injuries, you haven't exactly self-built within the depth to be able to overcome that. I mean, this is evidenced by the fact that once we have heard the Ram fans acknowledging and hearing about the fact that Alaric Jackson's probably going to be due to suspension, is that the second thing you're hearing Ram fans talk about is not, we got the great in-house option to now back him up who can step right in there and not miss a beat. But instead it's, can we go out there and make a call for Conklin? Maybe we need a call for Conklin. It's like, yeah, because you kind of recognize your guys' self, smartly so. Smart NFL fans recognizing themselves within house. Oh, yeah, we're kind of light on the backups right now. We kind of didn't necessarily hammer that side of this team. Might get through with it. Might not be a inhibiting factor in the least, but it is still present. It's not a mirage. Charlie B, hitchhike to Seattle, cheapest way to travel. Airfares are crazy right now. They are, and the hotel rooms are through the roof, and I would like to get like a rental car if I am in town for a couple of days. So it's a bit pricey for your boy. I ain't gonna lie. Yes, is putting up what I'm putting down. Rams have no depth whatsoever. They're only great on paper. Deans is also picking up what I'm putting down. His depth is everything we learned. This is with the Legion of Boom. They have no depth. And heaven forbid they get an injury. That's it. As I said, that's speaking back to like my confidence in that Patriots teams. Like you didn't have the depth once you lost those frontline guys. You know, you'd already had that prior year of winning the Super Bowl and had a bit of that depth bitten out of. Walter Thurman bites you out of there. No more Walter Thurman anymore. And so you just, you knew it was going to get a little bit tight on that side of it with it. And it's hard in 17 games NFL season to be able to just ride with just the starters in that way. And the Rams are built, and the Seahawks are built differently. We are a little bit more built towards our depth, and it is a little bit more purposeful for why our depth is better. We try to make this happen as well. It isn't that we've just suddenly made it, landed in purposeful. Will Valdez, hey, Brandon, I think the difference between the Rams and the Hawks is their ability to deal with attrition. The Hawks are uniquely positioned to overcome it, and that's the difference. Yep, agreed. That's one of the big differences between the two teams, and that Seattle's got that built in to do this, and that showed out last season. Your highest rated off-ball linebacker was Tyrese Knight. And a couple starts here, a couple starts there. He outperformed Drake Thomas and Ernest Jones by his rating. 2 strip sack fumbles in that game in the Cardinals that led to 2 touchdowns as a blitzer alone. Ty Akata outperformed Kobe Bryant, your starter, when you had to call him off the bench. Tariq Woolen was your main starter that last year, but then Job slowly started to take snaps away from him throughout the course of the year as you could, go to that depth. Nehemiah Pritchett, when he had to come out and start for a game or two, really, really solid for you out there. You're 5 deep at tight end. Josh Jones comes out there for you as you're down the last couple of games of the year, games you need, games you're playing against your arch rival, the Rams. You got to trot out your backup left tackle. You put investment in the offseason. You gave the guy a couple $1 million to make sure you had a legitimate guy there, not just some backup 7th rounder, Stone Forsythe type, but actually put a couple $1 million in there to have a good backup left tackle starter so you could sustain when that then did pop up. So it's one where, yeah, I agree completely. Obviously, you know that, Will, but it's also, it is that this is how you've built this to be this way. And it's all over this roster at every single turn, not just at this positional group happen here and that positional group happen there. It's all over the roster. You can see it. Over time, because Allen and Jackson are considered elite quarterbacks. Font think either ever gets to a Super Bowl, however. Yeah, they're going to have probably an uphill battle. They're both really good QBs, though. You're right about that. Yes, as elite QBs are enough to get to Super Bowl. Eagles plus Seahawks have shown the formula to win Super Bowls for organizations not named the Chiefs. Yeah, agreed. I think especially it's going to be harder to... I think the two things of just elite quarterbacks and then the looking for the young magical quarterback on the rookie contract are going to be two things into the future that I think start to become less things that have to become an industry standard mandate for every organization. And it seems like the Seahawks opened organizations' mind up into potentially building their teams in different alternative ways. That doesn't have to be just very simplistic and very one size fits all for every organization. Because I agree, yes, that's kind of how it's been kind of operated for about a 10-year period there, is that started to become the one track mind of every team. Either go get an elite quarterback or go get the rookie quarterback on his first contract who, is elite, that you're able to find that one. Yes, and even the Chiefs aren't dynasty without Spagnuolo and his timely defensive showcases in the postseason. It was never all about Mahomes and Reed. Agreed. Yeah. It's where it goes. If you're going to create a team that's going to be a dynasty, it ain't going to be just off of one or two factors. Or like, well, we got a Hall of Fame quarterback and a brilliant head coach, and that will create it. It's got to be much more to that puzzle than just those pieces. Yeah, Tribe, I think 2021, you guys had better depth. I think you had better depth on your offensive line. I think you had better depth at wide receiver position. I think you had better depth as far as rotational edge rushers that could come through on that team. Yeah, I think there was a little bit more depth. And again, it's to the place, as I said on this too, Tribe, to where it's like, you can go and win this way. It's not to say that there's no chance because you don't have the depth that you can't go get a championship. You can, it's possible. It's just that I do think it is harder, and it is one of those reasons where if I think we do find the Rams coming short next year, I think we're going to look back on, I think you're going to look back on and say, oh, yep, they were right. We could have used a little bit more depth. We weren't able to sustain just a couple of key injuries at a couple of key places. It's a very small point of criticism to a very well put together Rams team. Dean says, also, I'd like to say they have a really fragile wide receiver, and we have an outstanding wide receiver that has no flaws. You know what that could really hurt them. It's possible, and they're going to need Puka and Devontae to carry that wide receiver load. Maybe there's another wide receiver trade they make at some point down the line, but Mumfield, Xavier Smith, Winningham, these guys are not going to strike a lot of fear in the hearts of teams across the league if they've got to play a lot of snaps. Who knows, though? Maybe Ferguson can play some wide receiver for them. I think that's something that they would probably try to sell me on. Kendricks, Ty Simpson's the next J.J. McCarthy. Big facts. Big facts. Chris says if the Eagles can't put together with all they have, I don't know if Crosby adds much either. It's the coaching. Yeah, they got a lot there. They do. I think that when you look at their edge, you could see where Vic Fangio's a guy that doesn't want to blitz. He wants to go front four with the pressure. And so that does mean the front four, as we always say, when you're going to be a team that's just heavily driven by the front four, having to generate the pressure, then you need the dogs up front to go get that done. And then that means that just having one or two guys up there is probably not going to be enough to do it. And whereas you love the addition there of Grenard, brought into it there from the one side of it. I think that they would like to get more out of the other one with Nolan Smith on the other side as that other edge. Like they like their probably interior defensive line rotation. But when you do get to that other edge there, Nolan, not a lot of depth behind them. If you're able to now put Nolan into more of a backup role and then bring out a Crosby, Crosby, Grenard, Jonathan, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, a Jomo coming off the bench that's a pretty lethal defensive line if you don't want to blitz. And so it's more of it than this is just an instinct. I don't have anything I'm basing on as far as like insider info or anything, but it just does feel like one with where the Eagles are kind of standing right now, where they're another team that could be kind of getting to a place by next offseason as kind of a fork in the road where they start to make some changes if things fall a little bit short. They got the Jalen Carter extension coming up at that point, and maybe time to make some decisions there. Well, a little bit with the Jalen Hurts contract too. Kind of when they handed phone to McVay during the draft, all McVay was thinking was the McCarthy meme. I don't see another MVP season coming out of their quarterback. I definitely think the Rams, if there's one thing, if I'm a Ram fan or if I'm the Ram coaching staff, I'm thinking about with Stafford coming into this year is it's great he's back here and we've got him on the extension, but I got to protect the guy. And when doing research for this show a little bit and looking at some of what they had done with him, especially on the passing attempts last year, I just keep coming back to, he carries so much of the load of that offense. And he does so not just in his management of the offense, control at the line of scrimmage, but also by the sheer volume attempts, first rushing attempts. And that for a guy that's at that age, being asked to kind of carry that much, it doesn't feel quite necessarily, number one, doesn't feel necessary because you have built up the backs and the line to run block. But it also does feel like one where it's very precarious, where it's like you limit the hits, limit the amount that he's taking as far as punishment. And you're not doing that if you're having the guy work off a high volume approach a little bit. Charlie, hey, B, do you support giving head coach Peyton an extension in Broncos land? I mean, from the standpoint of producing results, you'd kind of have to. The guy came in there and he moved them off of Russell Wilson, and then off of moving them off of Russell Wilson, they instantaneously got into the playoffs. And then last year they got even further in the playoffs. And so he's done that while they had to eat that dead money off the salary cap books and still gotten that done. I think that in that respect, you have to give him the extension from that standpoint of things. I think that certainly he's definitely a little bit of a bristly brush when it comes to like his people skills at this point. There's some things that give you a little bit of some pause with that, but the guy just wins. At the end of the day, that's the bottom line when why you're hiring on the head coach is he knows how to build a winner. Kyle says, so much for the Rams plan to trade for Garrett and have Young, Nuka, and Turner to wait on their extensions in 2027. If they can pull that off, it'd be quite a coup if they can make it happen. But I just kind of feel like, man, I feel like you're going to have to get a couple of those done. Jack Brando, for our international game next year, you should be in Vancouver, beautiful stadium, and it's uncharted territory, still international, just saying. I'd love it if we got an international game in Vancouver. That'd be cool. I'd come. It'd be a lot of fun up there. Feels right if we're going to do an international game to do it in Vancouver. Rams House. B, if you could pick a classic rivalry to watch play in a Super Bowl, regardless of conference, what would it be? Cannot pick your favorite team for this. Example, Pats, Broncos, Super Bowl with Tom and Peyton. Oh. Great question. I think it'd be kind of fun to see the best Bill Walsh teams of the Niners in the 80s going up against the Baltimore Ravens defense when they won their Super Bowl. That'd be a fun matchup to see go back and forth. You know, one of the greatest offenses that we've seen built against maybe the best defense ever built. I think that'd be a fun back and forth right there. Yes, Brando, thoughts on the UFC White House event tonight? I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, man. It sort of makes me, sports are sports and politics are politics. And there's a bit of a pulling of one thing into the other a bit on this. It's a little bit of a, to me, circusy thing. We got like bigger things at play in this world to me than having sporting events done at the White House. You know, it just kind of feels like, don't we have bigger priorities right now? Like, isn't there kind of like some things going on that we should probably be paying more attention to than, you know, you got the guy yesterday, like throwing up on himself at the weigh-in. And it just kind of has an air of like, what are we doing here? I'm not the biggest UFC guy though either. So admittedly, it's like, but I wouldn't like it if it was a football then. I'd be like, I don't know if I like this combination. Kind of feels like the thing they would have done in the movie in Idiocracy. Banker Brando needs to update that depth chart with verse gone. I do need to update that verse with verse gone. Looks a lot better in there with Garrett, don't it, Banker? Jack Conklin that's right, Jack Conklin. It used to be a Titan, Brown history, a lot of injuries. That's right. Played a lot of football. Industry Worth with the $10 donation. Thank you for that, Industry Worth. You're awesome. Always awesome. Appreciate all of your support today. You are the best. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, anybody want to spot me 15 G's? Payback, TBD. That's a good timeline. I work with that timeline. Appreciate you, HHG. I was wondering about this too, Banker. Like, you got to call Whitworth, don't you? You got to call Whit. You'd be like, Whit, let's get the band back together, bro. We got Darnold here. We got Garrett in the house. Come on, man. You're 6'9". Just stand in front of him. You're 6'9" with 6 feet long arms. Just stand in front of him, man. It's all we need you to do this year. Just lay on guys. 6 games, Whit. Come on. Give me 6. Yes, so the media keeps regurgitating the fact Seattle lost many key pieces to justify the disrespect until you ask him to name those key pieces, not name K9. Indeed. Yeah, it's one of those that's one of those narratives someone else is speaking about where narrative starts to set, narratives get spoken about time and time again, narrative continues to be repeated, but that doesn't make the narrative a fact. And all narratives need to be backed up by something that, okay, well, how did you come to that conclusion? I can't really say. It just kind of feels that way. And that's a feels that way kind of thing, right? Yes. You're right about that. Bets on the new ownership. Kind of feels like Ballmer's emerging here late. Always thought he was always laying in the wings like a crocodile beneath the surface of a swamp, you know. You got to stare at it for 30 seconds before you can see the form of the croc beneath the waters. It's what I feel like here with Ballmer. She's right there, you know. Jody's there she's tapping the edge of the water with a little bit of the chicken like they do, you know, to bring him out of the water, you know. Tap, 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 tap. Multi says, I believe Myles Garrett is a great player, but defensive stats are weird. If you're perfect on every play, you should be playing less defense. It's tough. Yeah, it is a little bit tough, and it's a unique situation of him being there this long and never tasting success there. But he is a hell of a player. I mean, he's good. Ray Barrios, if Darnold returns, the Hawks will still have the best defense. Rams would be third behind Texas. I like it, man. I'm going with that too, Ray. You sold me on that, man. I'm with it. Yeah, Woolen at times would be a liability out there, Dean. And, didn't get a big contract on the open market this offseason, had a lot of incentive-laden levers in that deal with the Eagles that he got. And that just speaks to the NFL's outlook on Woolen was similar to this, which again goes against this narrative of you lost all of this, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the Kobe Bryant thing's the similar. So Kobe Bryant was, 26th highest rated safety in the sport last year, and Takahata was your 14th highest rated. It's like you're not losing some grand loss here. It's stuff that can certainly be mitigated. Joseph B., do you think we have a rookie that can win offensive or defensive rookie of the year? Good question. Very good question. I certainly think Jadarian Price should even if not only just be a guy that can be looked at as can win offensive rookie of the year, but is slight favorite because running backs are going to have more inroads than anybody else because they can statistically put up the years. And then the fact that he's going to be probably your de facto starter and at the very least be into that 200 to 250 touches this year, bare minimum. So he's definitely a guy this year that I think is in the sight line to do that. I don't think Bud Clark's going to see the field enough to be there as a guy that's going to get out there in that way for that. So yeah, I would probably say just Jadarian on this one. I think it'd be hard for anybody else to make it happen. Have a good one there, Megan. 12:30 here, still in PJs. Talk soon. Have a good night there. Ricky Brando, does McDonald's short track record with one defense worry you? Could offenses eventually figure him out, or can he adapt and evolve better than Pete did? Never had a DAF for more than 2 years. Oh, never a defense for 2 years. Yes. The thing with this is that it's McDonald is on one end of the scale from a spectrum standpoint, and Pete's on the other end being about complexity. And that if you're going to figure a defense out, if a defense is hyper simplistic in its nature, probably going to have an easier time of figuring that defense out versus a defense that's hyper complicated and has a lot of moving parts to it. So when it comes to Mike McDonald's defense, it's one that is multiple. They can rock over and under fronts. They will give you every coverage in the book, and they're not going to lean on one singular coverage. Like what was notable in looking at their coverage breakdowns, Ricky, this year, the last off season was like, they had like 4 different coverages that they had run like 20% rate of, where you're running everything at such a rate where there's no predictability on, well, they like Carroll's defenses, for instance, where you could say, well, they're going to run cover 3 60, 70% of the time. But we just count on it's going to be cover 3 no matter what. Which is Mike's got so many variants on his coverages that we get back to, again, the complication makes it harder to then figure out. And the fronts are very similar, the simulated pressures, the stack boxes. There's so many moving parts and so many interlaced things here. And then the final aspect to it being that, number one, it's not a defense that's fit to just a form that has to be this way every week. Like it can fit its form to what it's playing to the opponent. And if I'm attacking an opponent's weaknesses and then I have a defense that's built to be able to go out there and attack an opponent's weaknesses, because and this isn't to bang on Carroll, it's just to give a representation of the complete opposite end. Okay. So this might seem like it's more hitting Carroll, but it's not. It's just that Carroll's defense worked at a given time. It was sensational and created one of the all-time great defenses. But you knew you were getting cover 3 60, 70% of the time. I knew you weren't going to blitz. Like you were going to blitz at like 30th, 29th, 28th, most in the league. So snap in and snap out, you're dropping to cover 3. That single high safety is going deep. Those outside corners are going deep. You're rushing with the front 4. That's very predictable. Now I can start to very easily put together a game plan to attack what I can anticipate in coverage. Because if your guy's dropping his ass to depth every time, if he's trying to protect against the deep ball every time, that means he's going to open the door to you attacking on the underneath in cutting routes. And that's just what teams would do. And that's just how they started to solve, Pete. And then Pete didn't have adjustments for that. Well, he just kind of kept his defense the same way. And then it became about, well, it's a personnel problem. We got to get more talent to make the scheme work. No, this scheme just works, and then the talent helps it and aids it along to even more come to life. So I think that there's that at play too. And let's also not forget with this, Ricky, that Mike McDonald came in this past 2 years ago and he inherited this defense. So Carroll, operating on this end of the spectrum in the manner he does, had a penchant for looking for certain defensive players that would be molded to the scheme in the way that he wanted to run it. I'm looking for the guys that can operate within simplicity and play fast. Well, McDonald's looking for some alternative type players. I need guys that can think on their feet and that can adjust on the fly. But yet he came in and in the first 2 years has got this defense playing where they're playing. It's not that then John hasn't brought in parts to then supplement and be better fits, but it's not like you've like changed this whole defense over, meaning he essentially inherited the multitude of this defense, but has made it work. Meaning that's, to me, a representation of a smart defensive mind that's not beholden to a system or a scheme, but can think on their feet and at the base level, utilize what talent they have in-house in the ways that they best perform. Not in the ways my scheme best perform, but in the ways they best perform. For instance, last year, I think Mike McDonald wanted to do a lot more blitzing and a lot more stacked boxes and a lot of more flavor and flourishes up front. But because the front four were so good about generating pressure on their own and working together with the stunts and the loops and the twists, he kind of was like, I don't need to do as much of that stuff. I can kind of dial that back. Banker says, I would love to see the Steelers versus Raiders in the bowl. Another bloodbath war to hold the Lombardi. That would have been good. Those have been good ones, man. Especially those old ones where those guys were leaning with the elbows in the secondary. That's a good pick. Dean says confidence goes a long way. And let me tell you, what we just gained a lot of confidence in Darnold going to be better. Defense is going to be better at what is going to be better. What do you say? Oh, you're touching on exactly that point earlier I mentioned about Darnold, which is that throughout his time as a pro, he's been in places where he's not been the favored son, where he's not been put in a position for success, where outside of the first year or two with the Jets, that every other landing spot he's been at, there's been kind of a side eye for, when are we going to get to, he's fine, but when are we going to get to our next guy? And now he gets to be in a position where not only does he get the continuity and the chemistry of a whole offense returning, not only does he get to play within the same offense, albeit a new offensive coordinator, but he gets to play in the very same offense that he's very familiar with now. But then he's got the confidence in him that we're committed to you. We're bought into you. We're not looking to get to the next guy. You're the guy. And not only that, you took us to the height of heights. That thing that you could see and feel from Sam at times last year that even he himself have talked about this offseason in interviews, where the noise and how could it not? The amount of people that were banging on him. Oh, he's going to see ghosts. He's going to fall apart. The mentals of Sam just don't add up. He's just not mentally strong enough. I mean, it was the most personal stuff you can get. It's one thing if somebody says, hey, you don't have the arm strength. Hey, you don't have the mobility. You can't move in space. You just can't get away from that guy. It's another thing when they say you're a mental midget. And that's what people were saying about Sam. That's what they were, and not just saying about it, that's what people were banging on endlessly about this guy, and not just last year, but for years. And that's now been thrown on its ear. And you can't tell me that's not going to give him a level of confidence. And any athlete out there understands you're in a situation and you're working from confidence. It changes you in no matter what type of sport you're playing. There's a level of efficiency and a level of just that you're playing with a fearlessness that makes you dangerous. Very dangerous when you know you're that good, when you know you got it. And I do wonder about him kind of, there's no better confirmation of this. And I do think that it's going to play a factor, Dean. I do. It's good to see you in the house, Imogen. Appreciate you, man. Race's Secretary of State compared White House cage fighting to having a man on the moon. There you go. You know. That's good. You guys are killing me today. Tell is there a stat that shows when Garrett's sacks were in garbage time? There's not really. I will say he has tended to be a little bit of a streaky pass rusher. So I think like 13 of his sacks last year came in like 6 games, Telios. So that does kind of fit to the form, I think, of where he's been at times in his career. Or he gets a lot of sacks, but he does tend to get the oodles and bunches. Jack Brendo, I find it funny that national media still doubts Sam because of his new OC. Do we really think the coach that puts his enemies' heads on a stick doesn't know what he's doing? Yeah, I agree. I think there's no way when you're sitting in Mike McDonald's seat and you're replacing an offensive coordinator and you're keeping most of the staff here, I don't think there's any way you're sitting here where you're going to take some monumental risk that people act like this is, where it's, well, he's untested, he's unproven. I mean, this is a huge risk, but it's like, I think Mike knew what he was looking for. And I think the real key with Fleury is, rather than you just deciding from the start you're going to land on Fleury, rather than doing the lazy in-house hire, you did an exhaustive process, and this guy truly won the job. I don't think Ryan Grubb a couple of years ago really won the job. I think you were just out of options, and he was the best you hoped you could find, and you kind of tried to take a swing for the second deck, and it just wasn't there. That's not what this is to me. But yeah, it is the way that it gets spoken about. It's this big thing that sits over, but you would have thought we lost like the best offensive coordinator of all time or something. And Kubiak's great. I mean, fantastic job last year. But the fact that the thought process that somehow this will be a singular factor to sinking the offensive ship, it does not add up to me in the least. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. Randall, hard to quantify this. Is there a quarterback in the league who has backing of the team more than Sam? Sam really seems like one of the guys more than another quarterback. No, I think he does. And I think it's hard to do as a quarterback because there's so many things that cause you to sort of separate yourself. And I think that there's a bit of that drive, just like rock stars a bit, Randall. It's like the leaning into the diva-ness. It's like so easy to do it. It's so easy to just kind of like, I'm a little special. I'm a little above everybody else. Harder to be just, like you say, one of the guys. And Sam has found a way where it just comes naturally to him. I don't think it's something that there's a lot of like he's thinking through it. It's just naturally who he is, how he's built. But no, I don't think there's a team with more backing. I don't think that there's innumerable teams this year that you would have seen a quarterback throw 4 interceptions and that you would have seen defensive players jumping to that player's defense in the post-game presser immediately after that game, especially after those game like against the Rams where there's so much on the line and that those games are not just an average NFL game, but that there was all of the stakes at play as it pertained to the division and trying to make a postseason run. And yet they had his back. And, there's probably other quarterbacks that have some similar amount, be it a Josh Allen or a Mahomes, but there's plenty of other places that I'm sure there's some like, take it or leave it a little bit, right? Like, maybe we could do better here. Like the Niners to me already strike me as a team that's kind of like, maybe we just go with Mac. Get out of this contract with Brock and we just go to Mac. Yeah. Like that feels like already it's like a thing out there a little bit. Just a little bit. Appreciate you, Randall. You're on it as ever with it though, man. And yeah, I think this team's absolutely got his back in as much full as any QB in this league. James, what's cool is that Sam is very humble man who never gives up and he can deliver under pressure. You can't teach that. Look at all the other quarterbacks that were in the draft. None of them. You're on it, James. This was, when I was looking at Sam earlier and talking about, part of the things that he brings as far as the abilities go. And you're touching on a couple of them here that are on my list. I mean, these are the very things that I dealt with on the list here is clutch, durability, resilient, never give up, like you mentioned. So, I mean, you're touching on all these things that are the exact things that I was talking about earlier in this show that I think are something that Sam has really built up in himself and developed. Some of it comes naturally, certainly, but some of it is also just part of that building process of what he's done to, self-make himself as a player. Very talented guy, but it's also a self-made player in so many ways. I don't think the position just naturally came to him. I think he had to work really hard at this to get to where he's gotten. Simogen says, so I never thought we would get to the Super Bowl last year, at least a wild card slot, yet we won it. Look at how Mike changed the Ravens in 3 years. This year's D will be an all-time. There we go, man. There we go. Yeah, I agree. Mike's got a real ability here to create an all-time D. The youth of the talent and how strong he's building it up, and the fact that you've really got the means to be able to even add on more into the future. Very excited about what he's potentially going to be able to build here, defensively speaking. And he just, every year that goes by further and further, he gets to customize this to what he wants and how he wants, just what he wants his approach to be in full, versus just inheriting as he did. How you doing, Stitch? What's up, brother? Go Hawks. Sam is a free man now. He's going to be MVP, top 4 most of the season. I could go for that, Stitch. I like that prediction. It's good to see you, man. Sivajan, I never thought the Hawks would win the Super Bowl. Maybe wild card. Oh, I think I read that one already. Banker, unless the Hawks start slow in the first 6 games of the year, I wouldn't worry about the new OC. Now, if we do, yes. True enough. Maze, Brandon, how's life treating you down in San Diego? Weather okay? Keeping you busy outside the YouTube? Yeah, I like it down here. I mean, the warm weather is really nice. Living for years in the Pacific Northwest in the gray and the cold, it is nice every day just be warm. You can go out for walks, and I dig that part of it for sure. And going to try to get out to the beach here the next couple weeks, couple times. Get while the getting's good a little bit as well. James, John needs to give Sam a new contract ASAP because most likely Sam will take a team-friendly 15% of the cap contract. This way other players like what Hall did will do the same thing. I hope so, James. I think that certainly if he's willing to do an extension and give the team a discount, that this will help to get the extension done faster. But that I think it's going to be an elemental part to getting the deal done is that Sam's got to find a way to take a deal that's good for him and good for the team both. That he's not just like, okay, reward me, like a lot of quarterbacks can sometimes do. I hope this year we get more big leads in games. 1, so we win and don't have to worry. 2, we can get Jalen Milroe more reps. That'd be nice. We had a lot of blowouts last year, though, too. But that would be pretty nice to be able to give Milroe some run. It's hard to do, though, with Milroe because he tends to be just the emergency quarterback on most game days with Locke still on the roster. Kevin, remember when they talked about Darnold's psyche on ESPN, laughing out loud losers? Yeah, it was such weird territory for so many people to delve into. It's like you want to break down a guy's skill set physically and be like, well, this is limiting, doesn't have mobility, not enough arm strength, not accurate. That's one thing. You start getting the guy's mentals, especially when you don't have a lot of basis to build off of. It does get a little bit strange. Sibijan says, Kubiak wasn't that great for the first 6 games. Just look at Brandon's amazing Kubiak series. It was very rough in the first 6 games. True enough. It takes him some time to find it. And hell, he didn't have the continuity that you're going to kind of get right now with the coaches in house and most of the offense returning as you are. But there's always a little bit of the learning lessons with it. And that's the nice part about having a great special teams and defense is even if the OC is taking a little bit of time to find his full stride, that you got the team that can kind of keep you above float on the water there until you're able to really get things rolling. It's a good point. Bankers is if Brandon goes on ESPN with that Darnold chart over under 3 minutes before he gets laughed at. It'd probably be a minute and a half. Them haters over there at ESPN. They're not big fans of Darnold either. That's Richard Banker. Maybe I get mean on there, I'll be all right. That'll be the key on that one. Dean says, hey, don't you think with all of our returning defensive line and the rookies that we have that are coming up and our studs that we could be even better defensive line than we were last year? Yeah, 100%. I don't think that you lost anything that you couldn't replace. And I think you can make an argument that you've gotten better in spots like, your 4th edge, the Mafi edge essentially has been improved with Fowler. You're getting Riley Mills there on the defensive line. That's going to be substantially better than Brandon Peely was as sort of your 4th defensive tackle last year. And so, yeah, I think you know, Bud Clark gives you a little more reinforcement for the slot position beyond just the safety. And that means Witherspoon can just stay on the outside the whole season. So, yeah, I don't think it's like a monstrous big step further than what you were last year, but you know, the best defense in football. There's not a lot of room there to get even more substantially better, but better nonetheless. Yeah, Dean, I'm picking up what you're putting down for sure. Someone just says, when Mike became the Ravens D coach, they went from bottom 20 to teens in the first year. Second year, they were ranked 8th to 10ish. And third year, they were ranked number 1. That's right. That is right. Had to do some big time changes on that defense, moving away from that pressure based. A lot of stuff conceptually and how they're structured that was similar, but the blitz heavy nature of the prior DC was out the door. Charlie B, do you charter fish out of San Diego? It's fabulous. I'm not a big fisherman. I get bored sitting in a boat. I got to do stuff. Brando, yeah, you got to get to the beach. You're still looking Seattle pasty. It's real, man. I haven't been outside much here lately. Been working on this Kubiak series, man. Trying to prep up for the season a little bit too and do some scouting for some of the college players this year. I'm trying to get out ahead of that a little bit this year. James, I would agree that Kubiak wasn't all that great. He sure coached for a lot of different teams. Flory seems like he's more of a master of his craft, not just on a team to advance his career. Yeah, I think Kubiak was really good OC. I do think he's really good. I think it wasn't perfect and that there are certain things where there's times there could be frustrations for him last year. He'd get a little weird sometimes with play calls. But his commitment to running the ball and the system he brought in and how he implemented it and the staff he brought in, that's part of Kubiak, I think, that I'd say with him is that the play calling is great, but it's also the whole stuff that came in with him. And a lot of that stuff that continues to last beyond his departure, especially with most of his staff kind of remaining like they have. Man says, I seriously love old school football, dominant defense and run the ball. Amen. I keep calling it timeless. There are styles of football, pass happy, spread conceptually, get by on defense, super offense. These styles can win, and these styles do work at certain times, but they're not timeless. And there are eras of this sport where they can be completely shut down. You're trying to run a spread system right now. It's not a good time. Not with the proliferation of 12 personnel, not with things going back to the running the ball. So it's one where this is one that works in any era. Oh my gosh, Randall coming in with a $20 donation. Let's go, Randall. Give me an applause button here. Thank you for that $20 drop, brother. Very, very kind of you. A few years ago, listened to a pod series by The Athletic. I think they called it The Play Callers. Interviewed McVay, Shanahan, and that tree. They said D's would move to more positionless players. Now we see it with Nick, Spoon, and even Murphy. Yeah, I think, and you put me onto that pod from a couple of years ago. If you guys do get a chance, I'd highly recommend it. And thank you to you for sending it my way, Randall, because it was a very, very interesting listen. So if you guys do get a chance, check that out. It's an Athletic pod series, Play Callers, McVay, Shanahan, had a couple other guys in there. They might have been McDaniel in there too, Randall, I want to say, maybe. And I think that they were starting to see that things were not going to be, the lunch was not going to be as easily swiped into the future. I think that they were starting to see that defenses were now, going from a place of simplicity because, and I do believe this, I think in Carroll and ushering in the Legion of Boom, he started a trend that took on throughout the league, even in places in this league where they weren't trying to run necessarily the Seahawks system per se. And that was, I'm going to run things simplistically in the name of allowing my players to play really fast and not have to think. And the offenses took advantage of that and then started to anticipate that. And so I think that the defenses at that time and that pod kind of recognized at that time, this is going to be one where they're going to start to catch up on this and they'll start to understand we need to be complicated. And how can we be complicated? Being less predictable, pre to post snap. Being able to have players do a multitude of things rather than being fixed into their positions, because defenses for many years have been so hard-lined into the positions that they play. When me and Jake get in the discussion about nose tackle and three tech a week ago, it's where nose tackle is strong side of the formation, usually stacked between the guard and the center, and the three tech to the weak side and outside the shoulder and hard line positions, right? Mike linebacker in his spot, the will to the outside to the weak, the will or the weak side linebacker to that side. It's even within the names themselves of the position they play, where they're going to be. And because of that, and you can just, where those guys are going to be post snap. But if you change things post snap in an extreme manner, now you're going to make things really hard offensively, because I can't predict where that guy's going. I can't predict where that guy's going. I can't predict where that guy's going. Where 10 years ago, I could be like, okay, I've got a 4-man front. They're going to bring the 4. I can protect that up with my 5. That's going to be clear. If these guys are dropping to depth, if I bring an in-breaker here, if I run a spread concept, if I run a flood concept through this here, I can run a guy behind that. He'll run the coverage off. This guy will be right there. I can predict that as happening, and that will happen, and this will be a successful play. It's a little bit more of, I don't know what I'm getting post-snap now. So, yeah, those guys are smart offensive play callers for a reason, and they could anticipate it was coming, Randall. But what's also interesting about this is it's come down the line, and they don't necessarily have a ready-made answer for how to deal with it. And maybe the draw to 12 and 13 personnel will be some of it. Saying earlier on this, though, Shanahan's not really been a guy that's leaned too much into the 12 personnel. He's more 21 or 3 wide receiver looks. So even he's not necessarily going that direction as a counter to this. But it does speak to, I think, how tough this new defense will be to solve, in its complexity, is that there's not going to be just simply, well, they're doing this, so this is the automatic answer for how to counter that. I don't think that'll be the way that this rolls. But yeah, that was a great little series there. Give me 1 second here. Be right back. And now, Randall, we're getting Nicky Manwari working on edges snaps off the edge. 10 years from now, it'll be like middle linebackers that are also edges, that are also outside lockdown cornerbacks. Yeah, he starts out in a middle linebacker alignment, and then he slides out to an outside cornerback zone positioning post snap. That's kind of the next iteration of this, isn't it, Randall? Like, that's the next way this thing goes defensively, if it's going to even get ramped up more. But you touch on it. You got an Eamon and Spoon, guys that can play outside corner, slot. The guys can play safety snaps. Murphy, 1 tech, 3 tech. Williams can do some 3-1. Jaron Reed can do some 1 and some 3. Looks like Riley Mills is going to have some of that in his game too as well. It's very cool. Very fun defense in all its complexity to kind of watch too, Randall, because it's just so many moving parts to it, and it's got so many different things it can throw at you after all the years of simplicity. You're awesome though, brother. I appreciate you, man, for all your support on the channel. James Kubiak was only with Shanahan 1 year, Fleury with him for like 7. You can already tell by his focus on details he's going to be around for more than one and done. He'll want to learn from Mike. Yeah, I would estimate that Fleury's probably going to, need a couple years before the head coaching stuff comes up for him. I mean, these guys now are getting hired faster than ever, so you never know. But I'm sure Mike would love to have him here for a couple of years. Bagger says, Brando, cumulatively speaking, what decade do you think was the pinnacle of greatness for sports? I mean, it is hard to say on this banker because admittedly some of this is going to be you showing your colors as a older statesman here, right? And also ignorance potentially to, golden eras of times past, be it, there's people out there that I'm sure could try to tell me that maybe the 70s was a better time sports wise. But I do go into more of the 90s because I look at basketball and I think that was basketball's best era at that point. That was the best version of basketball that we've seen that you get to play. And I don't like the steroid era of baseball. I don't. I think it did a ton of damage, but I can't deny from a popularity standpoint what it did for the sport at that time. And while that's going on, basketball being played at where it was being played at. And then at the same point in time, you have, football starting to really rise at that point in its prominence and becoming truly the number one sport in the nation. And then beyond that, starting to gain really more worldwide connection at that point, that it was starting to really expand out. That kind of feels like to me about the spot where I would start to, middle 90s about, that felt like about the pinnacle at that spot. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. Says Ballmer seems like a natural and perfect next owner. Yeah, it's a bit like what we say, like a player built in a lab, Randall. You know what I mean? And that you go, okay, I got to go find a billionaire owner. Here's what would I like to get as far as the checklist in here. And Ballmer's pretty much got the checklist achieved down the line. And so, there's a lot of seemingly ones that would get you a little bit cringy. There's a couple of options out there that would have you going, I don't know about that. That does not sound good. That could be precarious. But in Ballmer, you have a guy that you do feel like is going to be committed to winning, brings the purse strings in, is going to want to carry on. Hell, he's got the Microsoft connection to Allen there, carrying on that lineage. You would know that he would do it right. And that does have you kind of nodding your head going, okay, this would be a good one if it would go that direction. It makes too much sense almost. Charlie, the Unicorn Bee, go watch Whale Fall movie. It'll cure you of the deep sea fishing desires. Yeah, I got that's, oh my gosh. I already got the worry about the sharks. I don't need the whale eating me worry. That movie looks ridiculous too, because he gets eaten by the whale and the whale also eats like a squid. And it looks like at some point he's going to be fighting off a squid in the whale of the belly. It's like it's not exciting enough he got swallowed by a whale. You know what'd be more exciting? Could we throw a squid in there in the belly with him? Dean, hey, Brandon, don't you think with the return of some of the receivers that we had last year and what we already have, don't you think we're a better receiving core? Yeah. I mean, you've got one of the better receiving units in all of football. There's maybe those out there with like the star power that they can maybe hit you with where they go, well, our top two are better than your top two. But look, we give everybody a run for their money. I would say that. And, part of it too is that it's a very efficient group because when you're 29th in the NFL in passing attempts, your receivers aren't going to have a lot of sparkling stats. Kind of is amazing. If you really think about it, it's the thing that people don't speak to with JSN is that he was the most efficient receiving leader in NFL history. Like he led the league in receiving yardage and nobody did it more efficiently than him. And that does stand out. It's not only good, but they do their job and they get it done. They don't need the high volume approach like a lot of other receiving cores, where they just throw all the time. So they get that opportunity. But you've got a 5 stack deep that's pretty strong. I think there's some teams that got 2 stack deep and 3 they feel good about, but few that have got the 4 and the 5 that they're good at. And Horton is a guy that we're going to do a show on here in the next couple of weeks talking about him. He's another guy with some real legit upside to him. He just gets forgotten about in this receiving core because of the injury. But that kid, if he can stay healthy, is a guy that could really be a player in this receiver room. WS, how you doing, man? Go Hawks. Cheers, Pumpkin. Brando, appreciate you for that. Pumpkin does as well, WS. W3 3S. Sorry. All right, we're kind of winding down here, it looks like. I might have missed a question on you guys. Just put the Hawks Nest in the deal here, but we'll probably put a bit of a wrap up here as we're crossing 3 hours right in about 30 seconds here. We'll put a bit of a button on this one. Hard at work right now on the last of the Kubiak series, so it is going to take me a little bit of time to get that out to you guys here this week. As well, we will be getting some more live stream shows. As I said, I think the next one we're going to be taking a look at is a little bit of a look at Torrey Horton's last year with him, and a little bit of some of the potential he might be bringing up here. So I think that'll be our next show that we got coming up. I do believe as well we've got a roundtable this week on Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that as we get through here a little bit of this off season on this side of it. Really appreciate the discussion today, and again, all of the tremendous donations. Randall, thank you for all the big donos. HHG, Industry Worth, you're the best. Appreciate you, Kyle from South Park. M. Jordan, Jimmy Plays Banker. Very kind of you, Eon. You all the best, Megan. Appreciate all of you guys on that front of it. Yeah. Jaws definitely messed me up as a kid. I watched that way too young. Way too young. I don't mess with the ocean, man. I ain't messing with that. I might go there a lot. Variety of ways I might leave this earth. I ain't going out this earth, but some shark chomping on my leg. Not for me. Yeah, bears in Montana don't mess around either, Maze. I've heard there's grizzly bears in Wyoming that are like actively hunting humans. Charlie says 1990, 94 pinnacle of sports. And yeah, you're with me on that, Charlie. Kind of feels like that's about the spot where then things started to kind of erode a little bit in some of the places, especially with basketball and baseball. Dean, okay, so I got to ask you this, Brandon. Does Tyrese Knight regain his starting position this year? He was taken over last year. I mean, you gave Drake Thomas a 2-year contract extension, and I think the easy thing there would have been to do is to just sort of like let him walk and have Tyrese Knight inserted in the lineup and save that money and go draft another off-ball linebacker and kind of call it a day at that point. And I mean Tyrese, what's strange about this a little bit to me is this. I think Tyrese Knight had one of the better rookie linebacker seasons that the Seahawks have had in their history in his first season. Now he came back last year and there were injuries that he was dealing with through the early part of the year and through the offseason that didn't have him at his best at the start of the year. Still, as he ended up the season, he still got in a position where when he was out there, when he was on special teams, he's making an impact. And that's where you go, okay. As I said, you got take this for what it is worth, of course, right? Like, PFF is PFF, whatever there. And this is only on 327 total defensive snaps last year. But Tyrese Knight was a top 10 rated linebacker in the sport by PFF last year. Top 10 on those 300 snaps. So, there's a certain standpoint of looking at it where you go, it does seem like you would think they'd find a way to get him in there. But look, Drake Thomas wasn't bad either. And we certainly know Ernest Jones was an all-pro. Thomas was 23rd rated off-ball inside linebacker in the sport last year. So, not chopped liver. He was basically in the same rating as Carson Schweisinger, who I think was the rookie of the year last year. Defensive rookie of the year, I think, last year. So this one's a hard one to answer because in certainty but then Drake got the 2-year deal. Drake played really good, and it could be they just kind of like what Drake brings from that standpoint of things. But it's a good first world problem to have all these good linebackers, only good 2 spots for starting. Peter Van Gent, thank you for the $5 donation. You guys are just tremendous in all of your support to this channel. I really, really thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart. You guys have helped kept this channel going throughout this off season with all that support, staying as members of the channel as you guys have, the patrons out there as well. Really, really, really appreciated you guys, all of your support here to this channel, as I know we're in the dark months here of June and people are out doing vacation stuff in the Pacific Northwest. But every time I've gone live, you guys have been here every single time, and that support, yourself included in that way, Peter. Really thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for letting me do what I get to do here, which is just chase my dream and just get to talk football every time I get to go live in this way. And it's a lot of fun to do what I get to do, but you guys allow for this to happen the way that it does. Trey, Skull Vikings. Hey, what's up, Trey? Best of luck to your Vikings this year. Hopefully you guys get a bounce back. It's always tough when you have such a good, strong team, a complete, thorough team, and yet, you're kind of held back by the quarterback position as much as anything else. And hopefully this year, will not be the reality of what you'll be saying about the Vikings this year, hopefully. Tough division, though, you guys are playing in, man. That is going to be no easy meal out there. Little shout out again here just to the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. Use my code today, HMA, and they will match you. When you put $5 down, they'll put $50 in your account. We got basketball just finished up. We got baseball here, full swing. Football on the horizon line, coming around the corner. Seasonal picks that you can get in play on right now. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details, but take advantage today of Prize Picks. They're America's #1 sports app, after all. More options, more picks to go through on this app. You can go for the overs, the unders. You can even pick the games themselves if you just want to do that. But please do utilize that code today. And we will be back. We'll be back very shortly here in just hopefully a couple days here. Talk a little bit about Torrey Horton. I want to get into his season a little bit with you guys. Talk about his potential and what I think he's going to bring to the table here for this team in the future. Is he's a real X Factor kind of player. And this team right now has a couple of these X Factor type players. Elijah Arroyo, X Factor type player. Riley Mills, X Factor type player. What do you mean by this, Brandon? What I mean by this is that these guys are guys that have upside undetermined and that could be plentiful, could be bountiful. Not sure yet. Could be guys that fizzle out and don't give you a whole lot when it's all said and done. But the talent is true in them. And if the talent can come to life and add on to already what you have with this team, that takes the potential of this team and just rises it that much more further and helps again in the elongation process of the Super Bowl window. Mays, Brandon, Cup or Shaheed gets #2? Cup or Shaheed gets #2. I think you mean #2 wide receiver position. And I would say it would be Cup basically, but it's really it's kind of a little bit of backwards in the way the answer would come out on this, because Cup's going to be a much better run blocker than Shaheed is. And so you're going to have him out there as a team that wants to lead with running the ball a lot because of that. Shaheed will get his snaps, but as a pure, who's going to get more snaps, probably game in, game out, I think Cup still ends up eclipsing him because he is such a valuable run blocker, not just run blocking for the cornerback, but being able to come down and do the pin block stuff on edges and stuff at times too. So technically, if that was where your question was, I would say more Cup. Banker Brando, Carolina is a champion today for hockey. I didn't even know they had one. I think they've won a couple times too, Banker. Hockey's having some rough roads right now. American teams are kind of taking some of the Canadian teams to task. Yeah, hockey went nuts, and it felt like we talk about the 90s, Banker. It felt like hockey went nuts in the 90s, and they were like Oprah with every team in America trying to hand hockey teams to every team in America. It's like, Vegas, you get a hockey team. You get a hockey team. You get a hockey. Skokie, you get a hockey team. Skokie? Really? Illinois? You sure? They'll love them. Dean, another question, Brando. Do we have Oots playing a full-time fullback, or are we going to send him out and maybe use him more like an H-back or a tight end? Robbie Oots will be a fullback full-time, Dean, on that side of it. I think if anything, there's more of a chance of you leaning into more of the 21 personnel stuff because of Fleury's background with the Niners and the Niners, penchant for really utilizing 21 personnel for featuring what Kyle Juszczyk can do in that offense. If as I was saying earlier in this, where it's Niners haven't really gotten as much with the full 12 personnel stuff as the rest of the league. Like Rams are running 13 personnel and 12 personnel and as high a rate as anybody in the league. Seahawks are running 12 personnel as high as a rate as anybody in the league. And the Niners are kind of like, they'll begrudgingly run the 12 personnel, but they're really going to want to stay more in 21. So it's a bit of a question on this, whether or not Fleury's going to want to carry on Kyle's approach to this and trying to stay with the fullback out there versus trying to run more 12 personnel. But because you have so many tight ends that are so well equipped to do whatever you want to do, from attacking the passing game or attacking the running game as run blockers with Saubert and Barner and Callerup, you don't really need him to go and play tight end. You got the dogs down there to get that done. Iona, thank you for, it's good to see you in the house. It says, I love your shirt. Hi, Brandon. How you doing, Iona? It's good to see you as well. Where did I get this shirt? That is a great question. I think I found it on Amazon, Iona. I think I got it on Amazon. I'm 99% sure. It's where I get a lot of my Hawk swag. It's good to see you in the house, though. Hope you're doing well. Industry Word, thank you for the $1 donation, the $2 donations, and all of your support today with the cute cats, the cute kitties. Randall dropping another 20. I said a $20 donation. That's for Randall. Oh, man. I appreciate you, Randall, for that. I heard it said Pete was the best coach 6 days of the week, talking about his culture building. I think Mac is actually better than Pete was, or at least different. But for as smart as Mac is, that's his strength. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things you want to give Mike McDonald credit on and really give him praise for, and tactician and the X's and O's and how smart a defensive mind he is. But you do touch on the part that we probably don't give as much credit to, which is the understanding, not only of being good at building what, the culture and the buy-in and you're going to practice hard and you're going to do it while still being very excited about this program. Like, there's a guy like in Harbaugh, for instance, one guy was one of his teachers. Harbaugh's a guy with a notorious reputation for, I'm going to run things hard and I'm going to make it a pain in the ass for how hard I'm going to run this. Like, this is going to be a long day at the office and you're going to feel it. And Mike seems like a guy that's like, it's going to be a day at the office. You're going to work hard, but I'm not necessarily going to make you feel like you had to do that. And that's hard to achieve, I think. And I think it is speak to how smart Mike is that he was aware of this as something that he needed to attack. Like, it was not something that sort of would just kind of develop like, well, I'll learn my style with time. But that, no, you need to be aware of the fact that getting buy-in for players is one of the big issues that even really smart coaches are running into. And if you don't kind of cross that bridge or have a plan for how to cross that bridge, you could quickly find yourself in a locker room with a lot of checked out players because your messaging just does not connect. You have the X's and O's, you have the game plan, but you're not getting the buy-in of spirit from the players. And I don't know, in a lot of ways, Randall, it's like, I do want to give him credit for, it's like, well, you had both the Harbaugh brothers to work off of with this. And I know as much as Jim might seem the harder of the two brothers, I kind of almost get the impression that maybe John is more of the kind of the hard ass with this, and that maybe Jim's got a little bit of the softer side with some of these players that Mike took a little bit of a cue from. But whether it was working with all of those guys or just how he's naturally wired, he's really done a good job about that, striking the balance of, we're going to run a really intense program here. We're going to practice really hard. We're going to be on top of things. You're going to run through things and not around them, while at the same point in time, not burning guys out, Randall, because that style can burn guys out. That can get people a little bit of like, you're on my ass all the time, every day. And it's one of those parts that makes him such a great coach. And it's also why I call him Randall, the 5-tool coach, where he's not just a great coach because he does this thing or that thing great. He's a great coach because he's covering every department of possibility on what you would want from a coach. Be a great developer of talent, be a great tactician, be a great builder of culture, get the buy-in in the way that you need to, utilize your players to the utmost to put them in a position for success. just you can go down the line with him, man. And he really does check all the boxes in this way. And it's why he's won so fast. This is why he's got a Super Bowl in merely his second year as a head coach, and doing so as one of the youngest head coaches in the NFL. Is you don't do that unless you're just this smart and you're taking care of this many items across the board. So yeah, I think that there is an argument to be made that every bit as good as Pete was on that 6 days of the week stuff that you talk about, Randall, right? Where he's found a way to really, tap into that same kind of spirit of getting these players connected. And I'm telling you, it's the hardest thing. Because at the end of the thing, Pete's messaging didn't change at the end. Pete understood what it took to build that culture and get the buy-in. And it had worked for decades and different football teams and at the college level and at the pro level. And suddenly at the end with Pete here in Seattle, and then we saw last year with the Raiders, I suddenly now am not getting that buy-in. Pete didn't do anything different. It's that the generation of player changed. It's the way that you connect to this generation of player has to change to get that buy-in. And Mike's been able to capture that. And it is no easy thing, because this is a generation of player that is richer than ever before, more independent than ever before. Social media pressures driving in like never before. It's harder than ever to kind of capture the spirit, and just that much more impressive that he's been able to do it, Randall. It's pretty wild, actually. Appreciate you, Industry Worth, for all of your dollar donations. You're awesome for that. And Randall, you're the best, man. Appreciate you too for all those big $20 drops, brother. Very kind. Thank you, Iona. Appreciate you. You caught us right at the end here. Glad to hear you're doing well. May says, I think Pete wanted to be friends with the players. Max seems to be staying at the head coaching and boss level. Yeah, I think there was a little bit there with it. And it's like we talk about with this, there's all styles can work. And I think sometimes this looks and comes off a little bit of like taking shots at Pete, and it's not on this. It's a little bit of more of just different styles and the way things can change. And Pete's style worked, and Pete's style brought the ultimate of success on a variety of different levels. But it is one where it's just maybe that for this era of player and this generation of player, you got to be more into that. There's a firm line in what I am and who I am to you as this coach, and the role that I have to serve and that responsibility thereof. Yeah, that's a good point, Maze. Vin Russo, Sam doesn't have a long windup on his passes. He actually has a short, quick release. Well, I appreciate where you're coming from on it. Vin, I'm not trying to completely seem like I'm just, poo-pooing here all the way through for poo-pooing all the way through. So this is something that I've understood, Vin, and from my standpoint of this, that this is pretty much understood, that I haven't heard too many people actually contend with this position. So I'm kind of interested to hear that you are kind of contending with this. So this is something with Sam Darnold that's not just been a recent thing that we talk about as far as the windup goes. This is something that goes back to even his initial scouting report coming out of college. So here's Lance Erdline, who's, by the way, here, Vin, this is not a hater of Darnold here. So this isn't the guy that doesn't like Sam Darnold. This is his initial scouting report of Sam Darnold coming out. He's got a comparison here of Andrew Luck. He's got him as a top 3 overall selection, right? But right here in his overview, at the top of the overview, right here, what do we got? His windup is an eyesore for sure. So he's got a baby. His windup is an eyesore for sure. But he has the velocity to mitigate the additional release time. So, maybe, when it comes to football, my man, Ben, we see different things, we all have different stuff that we'll see. And, it's arbitrary in this note of things. But he does have a bit of a windup. It's not like Dan Marino coming up and out, there's a little bit of a baseball kind of background there in the release. But like it says here and I agree with Lance's outlook on this, even though he has a little bit of the windup, he's able to mitigate it with some of the velocity and with good decision making for the most part. So it is something that is a little bit there. Crazy trick play idea, move Bradford to tight end. They think we're trying to play strong side. Then he misses a block and goes wide for a dink and dunk play for a win. Thoughts? I could see it. I've seen him do that type of thing in the end zone, right? Have a tackle cut block and then fall down, get up and go, and then the quarterback throws it to him. Bring him in as an eligible receiver. I could see it, man. I'm with it. You sold me on it. I'm with it for sure. Congrats on the week 2 game, Iona. It'd be fun. Yeah, Bradford would have to report as eligible. But you can that's sometimes something that's not the hardest to do because you can just bring him out there and it looks like a 13 personnel with an extra lineman, So the third tight end basically becomes the offensive lineman. We used to do that in the day with Carroll. That was a Carroll special back in the day. 10th straight win against the Cardinals. Woo! Let's get it. Let's get it. I think that alone would be a major tell, right? Not necessarily because you never run it before. So it is one where this is why it's worked for a variety of times. If you do it like at the 4 or 3 yard line, you do play action, and the guy kind of just leaks out there. It's one where because teams have utilized the 13 personnel with one of the tight ends being a lineman before, and that there's a team right now that does it. Was I looking at the other day that had on film? The Bears do it. So the Bears like to bring out the extra lineman there as their, it's basically 12 personnel with a 6th offensive lineman. So a lot of times with that, it does tend to be more of a tell that you're going to try to just run it. You're just going heavy and big and here we go. Catalyst, right? I think that's where that's more of the tell there. A lot less that you're trying to actually throw that ball to that guy, especially a guy like Bradford. Industry Worth, thank you for the $5 donation. Who would win in the White House UFC fight? A UFC fighter or a Seahawks player? Probably a UFC fighter. They're pretty advanced along in their training processes now. If this was 20 years ago when UFC was first starting in industry and you had, weekend warriors signing up for the cage matches, I'm a black belt and blah, blah, blah. Well, and a few NFL players back then might have had a chance, but these guys, man, they don't play around now. You go, let's start fighting, and all of a sudden they got you in a guillotine hole with your leg around your neck and beat you 15 ways from Sunday without you even getting a punch off. It's crazy. I'd have to say the UFC fighter, though. If it's that guy that was throwing up on himself yesterday, I might take a Hawk player, a drunk UFC fighter, or a sober Hawk. Like an Abraham Lucas? I don't know, man. They might be able to get that done. Thank you, industry. That's right. Ben Johnson also did that with the Lions. No surprise, I guess, that he's doing it here with the Bears too on that. I'd forgotten about the Lions one, but that was the move. They used to throw it to their guy with the Lions too. I think they even chose like an important play a couple of years ago to do it, which was like, it didn't go well. Like it bounced off the guy's hands. That's where Ben can get a little too cute for his own good, Brian. He gets a little bit too much of the flavor. But yeah, he's unusual in that. If he goes 13, he likes to bring out that big lineman. I was confident. Well, we will, and we're going to keep winning this division. It's time to sweep the Rams and the Niners. Seahawks on top, first in the division. Let's go. Well, I can't think of any better way to finish this up, Iona, than that. That is a great final way to finish the show up here today. As wouldn't that be awesome? Sweep the Cardinals, sweep the Niners, sweep the Rams. Slip and slide your way to the number 1 seed. Go out there, repeat again. Can you guys imagine what kind of season that would look like? Can you imagine what that would feel like? Seattle Seahawks have a chance at history. Not just history to win another Super Bowl championship, not just a chance to put another one trophy in the old case. But they got an opportunity here to cement the status as a great team, as a historically great team this upcoming season if they can pull it off. And they've got the greatest of challenges ahead of them, as we've talked about in the Rams and what they've built up and all they've done this offseason to try to overtake us. But we've got a team. It ain't about a player. It ain't about a star. It ain't about a superhero here and a superhero there, and they'll save the day for everyone else. It's about this team collectively coming together and everyone pulling their oar. And that if everyone pulls their oar in that ship, we will glide over the top of these waters. And Sam Darnold is a representation of that. Not only in all of what he brings to the table and his abilities to be productive on a weekly basis, not only as far as his leadership, but hard work and all that he has that he's brought here in that, but in the way of that understanding his fit within this team and what he needs to do from his oar on a weekly basis to go and get those victories. That he understands the model, that he understands the blueprint, and that him and Mike McDonald are in lockstep in this way and understanding what that will take. That's part of this breakthrough that Sam Darnold was able to experience last year, is to bust through and go, oh, here it is. Here's that perfect balance that I can strike. And if I can sit in this spot right here on this edge here, we're rolling, we're cooking. And I think this next year, there's not going to be a learning process. I don't think there's going to be these bumps in the road. I think Sam's going to be playing at his best, at his most confident, and that's going to get you the most dangerous. Yes, I said it. I said it. The most dangerous version of Sam Darnold. And I mean that for the rest of the NFL, not for our Seattle Seahawks. I really thank you guys today for watching. Really appreciate you for that. Please, if you guys can for me today, hit that like button. Little thing, big thing. Helps out the channel. Helps me grow. Helps me show. Really appreciate it. If you guys get a chance as well, please do sub on up, as we are now on the road here to 30,000 subscribers, and we're cooking along well in that way. As I said, we'll be back in a couple of days, so do please be on the lookout for that on that side of it. But until then, shouldn't have to let you guys know with the chance to go out there and repeat. Shouldn't have to let you know what the team built this well. Should have to let you know what the team that's got so many assets and so many resources to still be able to add even more if they should want, and they will want. But I'm going to do so anyway. Don't you ever forget. Don't you dare. Don't you bloody dare. We're going back to back, baby. Back to back. So don't you forget. Keep remembering. Team's great. We're going to do it again. Let's go Hawks.